geocaching is probably more fun than playing La Mulana.
You guys, what's your La Mulana problem?
It's way too complex, man.
It's very intentionally cryptic, but some people get off on that.
It's so ridiculous.
It's not accessible. I'll agree with that. But it's kind of cool.
I like that you said it's not accessible. You didn't try to sugarcoat it. Like, it's tough to get into. You just straight up said you can't play it.
The puzzles are extremely like arbitrary, and there's almost no way that you could possibly like. Even after playing it for like 2 hours the first time, I had to have people be like, "No, the opening move is you walk to the left." You buy like you get enough coins to buy like the translator, and then you go into then you start the game. I'm like, oh, of course, my mistake.
Welcome to the Roundtable Podcast, everybody. La Mulana is an impossible fucking game.
La Mulana is, but it's still respectable.
Is it impossible like 1001 Spikes or like even more so?
Now,
well, 1001 Spikes is just like it's like an obstacle course with like big like shotguns, and you're like, well, I'm probably gonna die when I do this. La Mulana is more like an obstacle course.
Paper cuts.
I don't even think it's like that. It's like an obstacle course, and then you have a starting line, and then there's nobody there to even officiate the race, and there's no finish line, and you're just like, am I doing it? Am I doing the obstacle course right now? And then like 60 years later, you die, and like a judge whispers in your ear, like, you lost.
Oh, and no, that's how you win.
He
comes up close and he says, you finally did it.
That sounds like a game I never want to play.
Mulana.
The music is really good, though.
I'm going to have that etched into my tombstone. I beat La Mulana.
Yeah. In your 40s, you did this one particular movement with your hand, and that unlocked the hell phase, where then when you actually die, you get to go to the next level.
People think I stopped that series. I haven't ever stopped playing La Mulana.
No.
Once I began, the rest of my life has just been LP episodes of La Mulana.
Calling it Llama Llama.
Llama Llama is
just waiting for the one episode this year where you make progress.
I dropped it. I think it was like equal parts frustration and equal parts just. This is the beginning of this, and the deeper I go, it's all just gonna stack on top of each other. There's no way I can comprehend all this stuff. Anyway, welcome to the show. Hi, it's the Roundtable Podcast. I'm Bear Taffy, Northern Lion, Mathis Games, Rockley Smile are all here. We are guest-free today because that poison has circulated through our veins, and we've gotten it out of our systems now. Now, we're going to be doing that more. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode with Gassy Mexican, and you checked out Tex-Mex in the Morning. It's a good show, too. We are going to be discussing some fun topics today. We got PAX Prime 2015 on the way. We'll all be there. No, we won't all be there. Oh,
I'm not going to be there.
I made it sad.
Oh. Wow. Way to
there will be lots of awkward coverage that I don't have much to add to, but I will do my best.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do, actually, is I'm going to make, like, a mini-series of, like, 3 or 4 videos, and I'm going to have you, Nick, like, weigh in as a correspondent, like our New York City correspondent for PAX Prime, where he's just going to...
like a little bubble in the bottom of the screen.
Yeah. Nick can have opinions.
Yeah.
From anywhere in the world, really.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
We'll also be covering 8-year-old freeware game La Mulana.
It's part of the whole deal. PAX Prime 2015, we're going to be talking about the games we're most excited for, particularly the ones in the indie mega booth, because we like indie games. Also discussing Wanderlust Adventure, as well as Volume, Mike Bithel's new joint. We've got Ask Roundtable and just a smorgasbord of good vibes.
Smorgasbord. A cube full of them.
You know what game has a cube? Magic the Gathering.
Oh, yeah.
Did they upgrade from diamonds this year? Because last year was all about diamonds. Now they're going for cubes.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, what the fuck, man? Don't do this.
So excited.
Don't do this. No, this isn't your time to make good with MTG.
Ready? Here we go.
That's actually like $350.
It's not gonna be the Patreon that gets Mathis off the show. It's gonna be him going bankrupt from buying too many boxes of Magic cards.
Every dollar you've made through our Patreon up to this point of this podcast is just like quantified right there by those boxes.
I had a very sobering moment when we went to our local game store, and I was like, "Hey, do you have like a Magic Origins booster box?" And the guy pulled it out, and he's like, "You know, this is like $140." And I was like, yes, I know. It was like, if the dude at the game store who has like Magic the Gathering shit behind him times like a million is like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, this is a little extreme.
That sounds like a lot of circumstances where kids came in with their parents and they didn't realize the cost that they were getting into. Like, he's legally obligated now to provide a disclaimer about this product.
It's bad. Like I said, I got fan mail yesterday of just like boxes of Magic cards that they sent me, like a ton of just cards. I was like, oh, you're just feeding my habit. That's all right.
You know what makes
I got a deal, man, on Amazon. It was a fat pack plus the 36-pack of boosters for $120.
That's so much money still. That's
it was a deal, man.
That's like $25 off.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's a deal.
It's
I
a
bought it.
Well, now I'm excited. Here's how it goes. I bought the booster box and we unboxed it. And then I was like, oh shit, there's another expansion that comes out in October. Definitely going to buy a booster box for that. Because I'm like, I don't want to buy a booster box for Origins because I already have all these, like, I have like 8 copies of common cards that I have no interest in. But when, Wastelands of Zendikar comes out, I'm like, oh shit.
It's going to get real.
I don't even pay attention to what the expansions or cards are called. I just wait for them to show up in the things that I can draw from to put into my deck in the game. And that's as far as I go anymore with Magic.
Right.
It's too expensive, man. I can't afford this.
It is cheaper to like look at the kind of deck you want to build and then just buy the individual cards at that point.
We're not doing an MTG podcast. We're not.
I can't. I've only been into the game for like 6 days. I can't.
You have like the entire arsenal of knowledge at your disposal now. You got it. You got 6 days.
Ask me anything about Magic the Gathering.
What is a land?
Never seen one in action.
Yep,
your deck is straight up 60 Thopters.
60 Thopters. And I wrote like a big 0 in the corner so you can just summon them without a mana cost.
Oh man.
Brian, tell me about the stack. Tell me everything you know.
The stack is a mercurial metaphysical plane where all cards that have been played or ever will be played exist for the fleetingest of moments. That's pretty much
way
all I know
more
about
seriously
that.
than I thought you would.
That's incorrect. The stack is pancakes.
Pancakes.
Yo, did you know that? Like, I'm coming from a Hearthstone background, sort of. I didn't realize how fucked up Magic the Gathering rules are. Like, every time Kate and I play, I have to Google, like, okay, well, can you tap a creature to use its ability after it's declared its attacking phase? Is it a creature's tapping ability an instant, or is it a sorcery?
Well, what's more is, like, every fucking expansion, they have to, I mean, when Garbage Dump of Valhalla comes out, they'll have a new factor in the game that you have to stack on everything else, and it's like, you just keep adding more shit.
But a lot of it's like just for that particular set, like in the infection rule, which basically was saying like after you stack up a number of infections, I believe that's what it was called. If you hit 10 infection, you die. So it basically halved the game's length, but that only lasted for one block. That was it.
But that's it's a redefining of other rules that already exist, so why give them extra words that you have to memorize? Just use it in terms we already know. You're just artificially convoluting the rules.
All right, fuck, marry, kill, first strike, renown, death touch.
Death touch is
Death touch can fuck off. Yeah,
my whole deck was based around death touch. Actually,
I want to fucking vengeance fuck death touch.
All right,
and then I would marry first strike. For sure.
I hate it.
Create an allegiance with that,
Did
absolutely.
You see Mathis for your blue-black control deck?
Yeah.
In Wastelands or whatever, Zanzibar. There's a new mechanic called something.
Did you hear about that? Yeah, it's very interesting.
Ingest.
Okay.
And what Ingest does is, like, every time you do damage with that creature, or every time the creature attacks, they have to discard one card from the top of their library into exile, or into the graveyard.
So it's like a mill.
Exile?
And you can fucking exile the shit out of it.
If it's exile, that's super overpowered. If it's graveyard, it's not as bad, because you can cycle it back in.
Okay, hold on. Reel back.
Okay, sorry.
Cast out the line. We're gonna do our show. It's MTG Day.
It's always MTG Day.
EA's Battlefront. Latest news on the Battlefront.
Oh, are we not talking about Magic anymore?
This is a Magic story. This is a Magic story.
I'll be right back.
Oh, you think he's kidding?
I didn't think he was kidding at all. I had zero inclination he was kidding. The newest game from EA, Battlefront, coming up pretty soon here. It's not
the greatest graphically looking game of all time.
God, it looks like it shouldn't look that good. That's how good it looks. And it won't. It will not have a single-player campaign. Battlefront, the data points to people not playing the single-player mode into games like this. Games like Call of Duty. I don't know if there's any better comparison to make than to Call of Duty. But the data shows folks aren't really interested in playing the single-player campaigns in these games anymore. They're more inclined to just jump into multiplayer, ignore the single player entirely. So they've decided to just completely do away with it. It's very
something
interesting.
Like Quake 3, where it's like a series of skirmishes that aren't really tied together with any kind of narrative, and I imagine the budget for something like that has to be super low. So I wonder why they would cut it completely when there's options like that on the table.
It seems the idea is just there's no reason to have a single-player campaign. The game Battlefront is not being marketed toward people that want an engaging Star Wars single-player campaign and storyline. Battlefront is coming back because people really liked to play multiplayer Battlefront, and they want to bring that to the modern gamer.
I don't know. It's tough to say, just because like there are multiplayer games that are mainly played for multiplayer, and like you said, Call of Duty is one of them. That the single-player campaign, though short, is incredibly well produced. It looks good. It plays well. The story's interesting. If you put budget and like effort behind it, it's fun. And I say if you're going to do that, then it's worth single-player. But then if you look at like Evolve, for example, as like the single-player aspect, you have the other end of the spectrum where it's like the single-player seemed like a fucking half-assed, like, oh, we should probably put single-player in here. It's forgettable. And of course nobody's going to play that because there's no, like, it's just terrible. So if it's for them, if it was like, well, we can funnel all of our funds, not all of our funds, but a good chunk of our funds and make a really good single player campaign, then I'd say do it. But if it was more of a, well, we could do a half-assed one or we could do none at all, then I support their idea of doing none at all if that was their decision, or if that was like a factor in their decision. Because I'd rather not have like an Evolve single player where it's like, oh, well, there's kind of a single player, but it's really not there.
Yeah. There's an interesting stigma that a single-player campaign is almost a necessity that it's like you phrased it, you just kind of have to work it in the development cycle. It's not even really the prominent aspect. It's just, fuck, the campaign. We got Greg on the campaign?
Yeah. Just Greg.
Campaign? Okay, yeah.
Trigger 20 enemies spawning here, and then get someone into the voice booth to be like, just 2 more waves, where I've almost finished the hacking. And then
you're like,
there
who
you
the
go.
fuck is that?
There's
That's Greg. Just introduced him.
That's right. No, but I mean, thinking about a bunch of indie releases that have heavy focus on multiplayer. These are obviously wacko comparisons, but think about something like Brawlhalla, where obviously all you want to do is just like beat the hell out of each other in multiplayer games because that's where the fun is. Battlefront, you just want to get online and shoot each other in the face with Star Wars guns. But with Brawlhalla, if you were just trying to like shoehorn in, you're Nash and you gotta fight your way through the evil campaign of Tournament Champions, and there's no real reason to do that. So it makes sense. I mean, if you just take away whatever necessity we have for a single-player experience, then entirely dumping all their available resources into just making the best multiplayer they can make, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, here's a weird question. What if fighting games stopped having single-player modes? Because really,
I don't think it would matter, right?
Days? I mean, a lot of people apparently made a fuss that Mortal Kombat X had like a ridiculous storyline and nobody cared about it, so why keep going down that path and wasting a bunch more money on it?
The only one that I've ever played that I care about to any extent is Mortal Kombat X, I think. And like, it's not even that, like, I didn't even play Mortal Kombat X, but I watched like the timeline of stuff on YouTube, and I was like, this story is batshit crazy. But that beats like the Street Fighter 4 story, which is like a new challenger, and then you just beat the shit out of them, and then it's like, oh, now you're in Taiwan. And
it's sort of self-referential. Like, they knew when they started there was no real story to Street Fighter or even Mortal Kombat. It was just a series of fights, so they just kind of pay homage to that.
I guess what I'm getting at is that it doesn't make Street Fighter a worse game and Mortal Kombat a better game, but you have to take it on like a case-by-case basis, I guess. But for me, it's like this, it's impossible to tease apart. Titanfall had no single player campaign really, focused on multiplayer. A lot of people use that as justification for not buying Titanfall. Titanfall was largely, I think most people still consider it a success, but also like, why don't more people play it? Well, because they didn't have that kind of like consumer confidence leading into release. A year later, Evolve comes out. People are like, well, we put a single-player campaign in it. 2K is like, we put a single-player campaign in it to alleviate that concern, but then we fucked up public consciousness on it with all of our DLC
I was gonna say the
policy.
DLC.
Yeah.
So now we have no idea if that actually like compensated for what might have happened with Titanfall. And then you got Star Wars Battlefront, where they're doing the Titanfall thing, which makes you think, oh, that might be a bad idea. But it's also like the single largest media property on Earth. So I don't know if they're ever going to have a problem finding players for the game. So I don't know. I mean, in a perfect world, I would like to think that I agree with Bear, where if the game's multiplayer focused, don't waste any resources on single player. But then it's like, you know, there are going to be people who are like, well, why? Even if it's just like maybe even parents or like relatives that don't understand, they're like, why would you can only play it online? That doesn't make any sense. Why would I pay $60 for this when there's this game that has online and offline? But then I'm like, why am I giving EA business advice? Like, do they not make enough money? They've been in the business long enough to know what they're doing. So fuck me is basically where I come at with this whole discussion. I have no idea.
I remember for Titanfall, a lot of the arguments when it came out was like, why would I pay $60? Why don't they just charge $40 for this if it's going to be multiplayer only? But then those arguments disappeared for Evolve, but then, you know, like you said, the Evolve problem was like, yeah, it's $60 with a single-player campaign plus like $3,000 worth of DLC from day one, so that fucked it. It's just, it's interesting to see these heavily multiplayer games all fuck up in their own interesting and unique ways. So I'll be curious to see what Star Wars Battlefront ends up doing, and how it ends up doing, rather, not what it ends up doing.
I mean...
You know,
no, you go ahead.
One more angle, and this is obviously a little bit cynical, but in the favor of the publisher and developer, it's basically willing DRM if you have nothing to pirate, right? If it's online only, you're getting people in for that, and they're gonna be in for that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think, well, there's two other thoughts I had. First of all, there's just a stigma in my head that I think it's going to be very easy for me to get over of they're not doing a single-player mode. That sounds in my brain like they're not making the game. They're just doing the multiplayer part of it. But that's not the case anymore, obviously. But then when you have the issue of this is all a multiplayer game, then of course when servers inevitably go down for 3 days at a time in the onset of release, then you've got no game. Exactly. Yeah, you've got nothing to play. You've got $60 of disc.
This is why you don't pre-order games. Don't pre-order, you
all these are just lead-ins so we can yell at you for pre-ordering games. Every single story we've got on the docket today.
Like, seriously, like, it's one of those things, especially with multiplayer-only games, just fucking wait 3 days after the game releases, because especially if you're going to buy it on PC digitally, they're never going to run out. The pre-order bonuses are not fucking worth it. Just wait 3 days, make sure the servers are working, day one patches up, and then jump in afterwards.
Ryan's shaking his head.
I'm going to be prestiged by then.
Yeah.
Vince Clortho.
Now the servers are down, you're not.
Man, but if everybody waits for 3 days, then nobody's going to be there to test the server ingest. They got to have like those 75,000 people all logging in at once just so they can make sure that they fuck up properly.
A non-reason to pre-order this fucking game.
We need at least 75,000 of you to be the guinea pigs that sort out the server issues for the rest of us.
Every studio, when a game comes out, it's like, we have absolutely no clue how many people are going to play this game, so let's set up, like, you know, 2,000 worth of people's worth of spots on this.
The number we think we need minus about 30%.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Happens every freaking time.
Every time.
I don't think it's worth getting upset about at all. I think this is probably just the direction that it needed to go. Battlefront in particular, I mean, it makes sense when you think about it from the perspective of no one really wants this single-player campaign, and they would almost have to just make an entire new Star Wars story for this new Battlefront.
That's kind of the thing, though, isn't it? I think people kind of associate narrative with Star Wars, and they feel like they're going to get a story out of it every time. So maybe that's why this is striking us as being so dissonant.
For me, it's weird. I mean,
let's not agree.
Like,
I mean,
there's a Star Wars movie coming out in like 4 months.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know,
I'm excited.
Dude, I'm like super anti-fan service, but even like when I see the teaser and it plays like the John Williams fanfare, I'm like, all right. You got me a little bit.
There's
You
gonna be
got
a
me more
movie
than average.
tie-in game if you're worried about that. That will exist in some capacity.
Well, that's what I was. It was like a perfect time to make like a super robust like The Force Awakens plus
Force
Star
Unleashed
Wars Battlefront
3.
multiplayer.
yeah.
Maybe not The Force Unleashed 3, but
Do it.
Star Wars Battlefront,
It was awful.
the unawakened Force unleashes.
And it's got the 70-point sword lightsaber, right? The one from that Photoshop on Twitter.
Right. That is a good one.
Star Wars Battlefront, The Force Unleashed, red.
Oh fuck.
All right.
And then blue has the single player.
Red
gonna
Red
go
Dead
And
Rebellion.
I
black
think
does
like-
both.
I think it'd be like red. You can play as only the rebels. Blue, you get to play as the Empire.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Did you guys
Red's
ever play
only
the
for
Star
Xbox
Wars
One.
trading card game?
No. Nerd. This guy's a nerd.
I am a nerd.
But I do have my pen and paper Star Wars RPG.
Oh, what the
There.
fuck? Come on.
You know it's
there.
a great trading card game.
Magic the
Nope.
Gathering.
Nope.
Yeah.
I want those blue latex gloves, man. And I
So,
want
I
to be
watched-
cracking open.
I don't know if anybody else watched that video you sent me last night of that dude opening that $1,500 booster pack with latex gloves on.
Oh,
And then-
by the way, someone linked that Alpha Black Lotus is worth 45,000, not 13.
That's ridiculous. He opens the pack-
$45,000.
That was the era that I cared about Magic, when that was a thing. My
Good,
God.
they're good, right?
card that he opens, he's got his latex gloves on, and his hands are like shaking, and he's like,
Yeah.
Mock
My
Sapphire?
Sharona.
Oh, the Mock Sapphire one. Yeah, that's like a $3,000 card.
Max.
And did you
That's-
see the video? He
oh,
actually
God.
sends them off. He gets them graded. They come back in this plastic case with like a grade on them.
Yeah,
And shit.
there's like a Magic the
That's
Gathering
so
grading
silly.
community.
The shop I used to go to in my town, the guy always had in the display case all 5 Moxes and a Black Lotus sitting next to each other. And it was like, this is when it wasn't a huge... They were $200, but they weren't $45,000.
Yeah, they're ridiculous.
Don't
Dude,
you
see
wish
that
you could go
now,
back
Max.
and
Yeah.
tell 9-year-old you, like, buy
I was like
500 alpha booster packs of this game right now?
I started in 4th edition, so I just missed like the alpha beta stuff, but it was still in circulation pretty regularly.
Yeah.
It was a wild time. I miss those days.
Woo! God, calm down.
Yeah. we're all a little bit
We're on the edge a little bit now,
man.
man. We gotta have to reel it back a bit again. Oh boy. All right. Well, Battlefront won't have a single player campaign. Let's just all be sad about that. PAX Prime 2015.
Oh!
Hype.
Oh shit!
Speaking of massively multiplayer games, there's a lot of people at that show. It's
I look
really
forward-
crowded.
I look forward to my Monday morning getting into PAX Prime and being like, "Fucking move, you people! Stop
You
standing."
can't have that
watching."
attitude within like the first 5 minutes of the fucking show.
No, Monday
floor, man.
morning. Monday morning. The last.
Oh,
day.
Monday morning. Okay,
I
yeah, yeah.
I have that attitude the first time I'm like 5 minutes late for something and need to get to it across the whole show floor, and I'm just like, well, it's gonna be like 2 hours.
No,
Well, was it
everybody
PAX Prime
on that
last
show
year?
floor
It
has the
was-
exact same attitude, so you got to keep that. in
That
mind,
is
too.
true, yeah.
PAX Prime last year, the problem was it was Evolve on the big screen, and everybody was like clogged in the hallway.
That
And
shit.
it was
I
so-
will never forget the trauma that did to me mentally. It left a scar in my brain. That there's this trailer for Evolve, but it's on like 100-foot screen. But the trailer's up on YouTube. You can just watch it on your phone, but everybody's like stopping to look at this huge screen, like, oh, market to me. And I'm like, come on, man. We got not just me, but everybody is trying to get somewhere at PAX, even if it's just moving for the sake of moving. Please move.
It's the same thing with the Evil Within, only they had the courtesy to put the screen a little bit more out of the way.
Yeah, they always shove that Bethesda stuff like behind the staircase.
Man, they could have been
PAX East
showing like
was great.
the Honeycam Studio trailer on that big
God, I
screen. I
hope
think it's
they-
just worth watching the big TV and the show floor.
so ready.
I wish
Absolutely.
Honeycam was like Hypercam and like new Let's Players had Honeycam all over their watermarks.
The whole point of PAX is to move around and look at big displays. That's all I do. I go to PAX so I can walk around and get annoyed at people that aren't walking around.
I want to say, by the way, like I feel bad for feeling this way. If anyone's watching this and you're going to PAX and you're like, oh, I gotta keep moving because otherwise people are gonna be mad at me. I mean, maybe, but also like just enjoy PAX. Like you're spending your money to be there, your time. You should enjoy it however you want.
If you're going to PAX, make sure you double take about every 30 seconds or so. Make sure Ryan's not behind you, staring
getting
daggers
ready.
into your soul.
But it's crowded, and I think every like 15 or 30 seconds, you should do like a mental internal ask of like, am I
I'm
going
blocking it.
where I want to be? Like, or am I just walking because I'm like overwhelmed by the crowd? And then like, just, and it doesn't matter. Basically what I'm getting at is this is like PAX fucking 8 or something, and I'm too cynical. But also, I'm like, I need to be here, and I'm not.
The real problem is just when you get like the cholesterol on the veins of the freaking walls, right? And everyone's crowded into the center, and no one's moving at all. That's the only reason it's a real problem. If everybody's kind of moving, I can deal with that.
Some dude with like a 4-foot wide backpack turns sideways to watch a trailer, and you're like,
yeah, blocks.
Yes.
You're like
backpack.
1,000 people need to get through the space in the next 30 seconds, and only one person at a time can pass you.
I'll have you know that 4-foot backpack is integral to his cosplay, okay? You better respect that. That is a work of art.
Again, like, here's the thing. Here's our PAX compromise. You do whatever you want at PAX, but also internally, I'm not going to make your PAX experience worse. But if you're making my PAX experience a little worse, in my head, I'm going to be like, oh, that guy's an asshole. Or that guy's inconsiderate, at least.
Yeah. Do you want Northern Lion to think you're an asshole?
Hey, kids, do you want Northern Lion to think you're an asshole? Come to PAX Prime.
Come to PAX Prime, bring a big backpack, and
stand still.
Stop.
I'm kind of perturbed by the amount of notices that now have to go out, like, preceding the PAX events. Like, the amount of basic decency requests and notices and warnings that they have to send out to people, like, along with their tickets. And I even got it in a hard copy form this time. There's things like, make sure to bathe, and, like, don't take a nap on the show floor. That would be insensitive to the other showgoers. Also, don't take pictures in the hallways.
Oh my god!
Don't do that.
Oh yeah, group picture. I know, guys. Everybody, just stand still. Hang on a second. I'm just gonna take this picture.
Just wait for the 70
outside.
people to walk past, then wait for them to stop and stand in front of us, then wait for them to walk past again.
Yeah, like if you can find a good place, then that's fine. But like in the major thoroughfare, when they're like, "Oh my god, you're dressed up as Master Chief. I need a picture," and then they
Who's
do the thing
that?
where like one gets on the costume cosplayer gets on one side of the road, and the photographer gets on the other side. So literally nobody can walk through.
Yeah, can walk through
until this one dude gets his picture, and you're like, ah.
They should have picture rooms. They should set up like picture time.
That would be a good idea.
Dude,
Take
that would
care
be
of that.
such an
I'm gonna
uncomfortable
pad down
vibe.
with my sweat towel real quick.
I
Yo, let's
agree.
go to the picture room.
Yo, there's like a super hot Chun-Li cosplayer in Picture Room North N1. Let's get in there. People
You
like
say
snapping
Chun-Li,
pictures.
I'm already there.
Maybe it was a bad
Yeah.
idea. I don't know.
We wanna talk about the games that are gonna be at PAX as
Seriously
well.
though, have fun at PAX.
Gotta
Don't
cover
let
yourself.
don't let us grizzled
better have
old
fun at
cynics.
Enjoy the
fuck
$12 gyros and beer.
Exactly. Have a fun time. Do whatever you need to do to have a fun time. That's okay. I've been annoyed before. I can live with it.
I remember as recently as like 3 years ago, still having the J. Smith OTI-esque childlike wonder of my perspective of conventions and things like that. It's like this big gathering of all the most important people in my sphere of the world. And now it's just an inconvenience. To have to go to things like that.
I do love PAX, but there are inconvenient parts of it, especially with it being 4 days long now. The last day is just like, by about halfway through the first day, I don't want to be on the show floor. I want to set up a room and then have people come to me, as selfish as that is.
I know.
But
This is Northern Lions Corner. Fucking come to me if you want to talk.
Bring your booth into this room.
the booth that you
picture
spent
room.
like $15,000 renting or something
Right.
ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
I'll be in my hotel room.
No, I'm excited for PAX. I'm always excited for PAX. I don't really do too much scheduling, so that kind of allows me to go and enjoy the show floor and kind of see indie games at my whimsy, I guess, instead of like following a rigid schedule. I'm excited for the Elephant Room bar or wherever it was that we went last year with all the poutine. We went there.
Oh, it's the Elephant and Castle.
Yeah, the Elephant and Castle. That's what it was.
It's a pretty solid poutine, yeah. I agree.
Excited.
Poutine review coming up in the post-PAX show,
Yes.
so get excited for that. Talking about the mega booth, though,
Yes.
there's a lot of repeat appearances again. And
As is
maybe even more
common.
so than previous mega booths, though. I mean, yeah, it has become common, but this is a lineup of a lot of stuff we've seen before.
Have you guys heard of La Mulana 2?
Oh,
Mama.
fuck.
I know.
The direct sequel to The Cult. 2D side-scrolling action adventure hit La Mulana. I guess that might even be referring to the mannerisms of the game itself. They're kind of cult-ish. Or culty. Culty is a word that I want to use a lot more.
When you say mannerisms, what do you mean by that?
It's just like the way that the game plays out. I mean, like just a lot of the things involved with it. I don't know. I just associate,
ninja hand signs,
a demon beast with 1,000 heads and a goblet of blood you must sacrifice upon the third pedestal at night.
That's a thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything in particular you guys are excited for?
I'm looking forward to Ultimate Chicken Horse.
I'm sorry?
Ultimate Chicken Horse.
It sounds like what you order. I'm just gonna follow through with the joke, even though it caught the first check in my brain for should I say this. I'm gonna finish it, and I want you to know that I mean no offense by this. I'm gonna say it sounds like my order at a Korean barbecue restaurant.
Oh, that's not even that bad. Come on,
I know,
you didn't have
but
to fucking give that a disclaimer.
People will jump through hoops to make that.
You're racist.
Ultimate Chicken Horse is God, that nearly came out wrong. Ultimate Chicken Horse is the party platformer.
I was gonna say Ultimate Chicken Horse. Well, I almost said Hitler did nothing wrong. I don't know.
That's weird. They sound so similar.
I can't separate those two ideas in my head. You play as a chicken or a horse, or some other animals. Less important ones, apparently. They should have called it Chicken, Raccoon, Horse, Sheep.
Well, here's why it's called Ultimate Chicken Horse, because it's a combination of chicken and horse. Chicken being your own bravado versus your enemies, and horse being the basketball game. Can you make the shot that your enemy made?
Are we actually excited for a fucking chicken horse game, or are you just fucking...
No, I'm legitimately excited for Ultimate Chicken Horse. Not just for the name.
They just like the name. I think
the name is very good, but it is a cool idea. And I want Ryan to talk about it, because he knows more than I do.
Yeah, Ultimate Chicken Horse. So what basically it is it's a... I don't know how many people you can have in it, but it's meant to be multiplayer. And it's a platformer similar to something like Super Meat Boy, sort of, where your only goal is to get to the end of the level without dying by going through like a variety of hazards. But the way that it works is actually you make a level that is really tough, and then if you beat it, your opponent has a chance to beat it as well. If they beat it, nobody gets any points. If they don't beat it, you get 1 point because you made a level your opponent didn't beat. So it's basically you just like trade off and keep making the level like you want to make it so difficult that your opponent can't beat it, but you can still beat it. So you have to like constantly do that like value assessment, evaluation, and be like, can I beat this? Can they beat this? So it looks really cool, and like selfishly, I'm like, this is the kind of game that would be perfect to play on a stream. It's got like that Mount Your Friends style vibe, or like Bloody Trapland a little bit. It's got a little bit of that, like a co-op platformer that is Super Meat Boy-esque.
I'm wondering how much freedom it's going to give you. Like, I imagine there's probably levels where there's certain things in place by default, and then you just kind of build around that. Or it might just be entirely freeform, where you have a set amount. Maybe even akin to something like Fort Meow, where they give you a finite amount of time that you can allot to placing resources around the area, and then just build out that way, which will work pretty well. But yeah, like you said, it's great for, they call it a party game, of course, because it is. Yeah. Great for online multiplayer. Ideally, the online works well, which would be kind of necessary, but...
That is important.
Yeah.
No host advantage.
Right. Move or die. God, I hope they fix that. That's another game akin to Ultimate Chicken Horse, where it's terrific for multiplayer and streaming and such, but struggles because of that lone thing.
I should clarify that I'm not 100% sure that it has online multiplayer, but I saw two best friends play it. I don't know if they were in the same room at the time when they did it. I think I saw a rooster.
I don't think they've ever been in the same room, actually.
Just...
Wait, really?
No.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say, they play local co-op or multiplayer fighting games.
They're not actually two best friends.
Yeah, they're a business.
Play online multiplayer. Boom.
Nice.
There you go. According to the Kickstarter.
One of the games that's already out that actually looks pretty fantastic. I haven't actually gotten the chance to play it because I don't own a PS4, but Galaxy is a modern AI physics-driven open-world action game. And damn, it looks cool. It's got a bunch of dogfight and stuff. Just a pretty run-of-the-mill space combat. I like the spelling of the title. Gallic -Z.
That's how you make a title for SEO purposes.
That's
Good for
right.
SEO, yeah.
We were having that conversation before the show today of like, why was volume just spelled volume? That certainly can't bode well for Mike Bithel's SEO results.
Turns out it did.
He's number 2. If you just search the word volume game shows up. Like,
You guys are right.
He's doing
He
well.
is number 2.
It's impressive. He must have paid Google just ass loads of cash. He's got some of that Thomas Was Alone money going up for those SEO results. But yeah, Galaxy looks pretty fun. La Mulana 2 is going to be there. That's horrifying.
There's like 3 games I'm kind of looking forward to.
What do you got?
Checking out. I really loved
Hold
Always
up.
Sometimes Monsters.
No,
so I was gonna
I'm
say
not ready for this
sometimes-
yet.
All right, we're not ready yet.
Flying across the continent. You're
Okay.
like, there's 3 games. I'm pretty interested in.
Well, there's 3 of these in the mega booth. I'm excited to see a lot of AAA stuff and mostly just see
Sell out.
friends, weird. But sometimes always monsters. I know. Fuck you. Play Magic cards is the reason I'm going to see it.
Right, yeah, no, you're true.
Anyway, sometimes always monsters. I'm really excited to see. I really liked Always Sometimes Monsters a lot. I thought it was a really fun narrative kind of driven game where your choices seem to actually have mattered more so than in like a Telltale game at least. And I enjoyed it a lot. One that actually kind of caught my eye as I was looking through this list and I looked into it a little bit is the Westport Independent.
Yo, that caught my eye as well.
It looks like oh god, that other one.
Papers, Please.
Papers, Please, exactly.
Ah.
The idea is you're an editor that is going through the newspaper and you're deciding what you want to censor out of the newspaper before you send it out. It has the aesthetic is incredibly similar to Papers, Please, but it's something that caught my eye because of Papers, Please. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what that's about, what's going to be playable there. Is it going to be one of those games that's like, it's not really fun, but the challenge is enjoyable and well, that's kind of how I felt about Papers, Please. The game itself wasn't incredibly fun, but I had fun with it, if that makes sense.
No, I kind of get what you mean. It's not traditionally entertaining and engaging, but it has its own appeal that makes it worthwhile.
Yeah.
That team, by the way, 0010,
Yeah.
responsible for Tiny Angry Eye Candy Saga. I don't know what that is, but I wanted to
I like
read
that
the name
name.
out loud. Yeah.
Tiny Angry Eye Candy Saga.
Tiny
so it's
Angry
got
Eye
like
Candy Saga.
it's got like Candy Crush, Angry Birds, like everything mixed, like
All
kind of
mashed
pushed
up
into it.
together. Yeah, it's disgusting. It
Interesting.
is abysmal. I don't know. I shouldn't rip on them.
And the last game I want to see while I go there is a game I actually played a demo for when it was going through its Kickstarter was Through the Woods.
Out of Oslo.
That does look interesting.
Yeah, so I played the demo when the Kickstarter came out, and I wasn't terribly impressed with what I saw there, but I liked the story and the idea they were going for. So I'm hoping they've kind of elaborated and kind of pushed that forward a bit. So it's a horror game. It's a third-person horror game, and the idea is this woman has lost her son in the woods, and it has a lot of Norwegian folklore involved of these monsters and trolls and stuff. That have possibly kidnapped her kid, and you have like evidence in the woods of her kid went this way, like bike blinkers or like little like teddy bear around. And the idea is like maybe I forget what the name of this monster, this Norwegian monster, has kidnapped her son. She's looking for him, but as you're playing, she's narrating to a police officer as to what happened, and so you're not sure if she's maybe crazy or like her husband took the kid and she's making up the story as to how he disappeared.
Babadook effect.
Yeah. So I liked that aspect of it, and I liked the folklore of it. There wasn't really much to be afraid of when I played it. A couple of little jumps here and there. My problem with it was when you died, like if the troll got you and you died, she was like, wait, that's not how it went down. And the police was like, so you want to start again? So it was just weird, this weird narrative, like disjointedness of like, wait, so you told the cop that you died, and then you had to say, hang on a second, wait, I didn't die. Let me roll this back a little bit, and then play it forward again. That just felt a little bit off, but again, the idea was solid. Graphically, it's the Unity engine, but it looks good for a Unity game. And I'm excited to see if they've maybe tweaked some things, polished some things, and pushed that idea forward. So I'm looking forward to checking it out.
On the note of Through the Woods, can we talk about Norwegian folklore for a second?
Yo, you were right, man.
I'm going to prove a point right here. I just Googled Norwegian folk tales just to see, like, just get a quick example of the sort of things that routinely come out of Oslo, Norway.
That's fucked up.
Here's the tale of Thumbikin. Thumbikin. Sorry, this is Thumbikin. Thumbikin was the only child of a woman who was no taller than your thumb. He went out to wed. He found a bride. His bride accidentally dumped him in a pool of melted butter and he drowned. That is the Norwegian folktale of Thumbikin. Norwegian folklore is horrifying.
Yeah.
Why is it all
really
so sad and scary and depressing? Why? I want to like Norway.
There's something about Scandinavia that just like, or not even Scandinavia, but the Nordic countries that breeds like the scariest, like bleakest visions of the horror world. Like there's Icelandic lullabies. I have a list of Icelandic lullabies in front of me right now.
Oh, this is great now, yeah.
Okay, here's one. It's translated, obviously. Boom, boom, bambalo, bambalo, and dilly dilly do. I rock my friend to sleep, but outside there's a face in the window. And
Dilly dilly do.
It's not comforting at all.
Here's apparently, this is like one of the most famous, or this is one of the most beautiful ones. Sleep long, sleep tight. It is best to wake up late. The hardship will teach you soon, while the day turns to night, that people feel love, loss, sadness, and longing. It's like, you know, hush, little baby, don't say a word. Everybody dies one day.
I mean, doesn't every culture have some pretty morbid folktales? I mean, the German culture does, the Russian culture does.
And for being honest, too, I mean, like, we think about the old stories of, well, I think even, like, The Little Mermaid, the classic Disney film, The Little Mermaid, I'm pretty sure that was just based on the idea of a woman who was forever trapped, voiceless at the bottom of the sea or something like that. So we're all just horrible people, really.
But in Western culture, we bury that deep within ourselves. Whereas it seems like in Nordic culture, they're like, yes, you know, one day the universe will die, and you know, if the fabric of reality as we know it will be sundered. Eat your herring, you know.
You might as well go to sleep right now, because one day you'll be buried in the ground.
I like it.
Through the woods.
I think it's, with so many fucking horror games coming out every day, it's a nice little twist on the horror genre. I like it.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Nick, what are you excited to see at PAX Prime 2015?
I was looking through the list, and it looks like pretty much every one that I'm excited to see I've already either have or is out, or I played it last year. So the main ones for me, Below, I saw that already. Looks great. I'm excited to play it, but I don't have it yet. That's like the one. Captain Forever Remix, I didn't know I was excited for it. It came out, and I like it, and I played it. Discord Games made Chasm. I've been excited for that, and will preach it from the freaking rafters every time I get the opportunity. I'm very excited to play the shit out of Chasm. But it's not ready yet. Death Road to Canada is maybe the one outlier by Rocket Cat Games that looks kind of interesting. I don't really know much about the premise, but I know Rocket Cat from prior experience and good stuff, so I'm going to be watching that one going forward. Looks like it's got a little bit of like a Hotline Miami kind of thing going on with zombies, maybe. I don't know. I'm going to watch it, though. Beyond that, though...
Isn't Rocket Cat also making that Sword Fight Your Dad game?
Exactly, and I'm super hyped for that.
That's what
Dad
it is.
by the Sword.
Dad by the Sword, that's so good.
Yeah.
It's a good name.
Distance is another one I'm looking forward to, but you know I have that now, and it's good. It's fun. Galaxy we talked about. Gang Beasts. If that gets online multiplayer, I'm all over it. I heard it might be getting it eventually. We got to try it once when I was over in Vancouver, and it was really fun.
Gang Beasts is good.
Yeah.
You know, multiplayer wrestling games, I can't see a downside to that. Hyper Light Drifter, got to try that last year.
Hyper
really
Light
liked
Drifter,
it.
man, that is just...
It's really pretty.
It looks so good. I think, bar none, that is the one that I am most ready to play and experience.
Yeah, I hope it comes out soon. Well, I hope it's done when it comes out, is I guess the more important thing. Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, we got to try that a couple of years in a row. Everybody loves it.
Still looking awesome, yeah. I love it.
And what else? I think the only other one on here that really stood out to me, Mushroom 11, which is a very unique game, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it justice in explaining it, but it's kind of like a side-scrolling puzzle platformer in that there's always this little chunk of fungus that's expanding, and you're trying to direct it over and through obstacles while retaining core mass enough to let it continue expanding. So that one's on my radar for
It
sure.
has like a World of Goo sort of feel
Yep,
to
yeah,
it.
it's kind of in that same genre of puzzle
Yeah.
platforminess.
That one did look really interesting, actually. Yeah, I like the idea of like having parts of your mass separate from you as you're trying to progress.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, I'd recommend give that a look if you can. And I think the last thing is the Magic Circle, which I have right now on Steam, and I'm looking forward to playing it. It's a very like esoteric. What if a game released and was never finished, and the developers were like eaten by the narrative of it or something? So I'm gonna be looking into that one.
That seems like a
Sounds awesome.
Nick game. Honestly,
It is, as
That's
far
a
as
very
I've heard,
Nick
yeah.
game.
But that's kind of my whole list.
Ryan, you're up.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna be the dude who's a little bit of a dick and say that a lot of the stuff in the Mega Booth doesn't appeal to me right now, mostly because, like you guys were saying, we've seen so much of it. But there's stuff that I'm interested to see, like Due Process. It was recently kickstarted like tactical FPS. That's like a little bit lo-fi, but it looks kind of like a stylized Rainbow Six game from like 15 years ago. It would be really sweet if that was like not as bad as Takedown Red Saber was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So that would be really cool. And apart from that, I mean, yeah, I'll take a look at Death Road to Canada. That studio has a really good track record. And
Kind of obliged to, aren't you? You got to figure out what's going on there.
that's right. Yeah, I got to see if they're doing the country justice.
He lives in Canada. That's the joke.
Yeah, he does.
Rising Thunder, I'm kind of interested in, but I think I could just play it right now, right? That's that like it's the game made by the organizer of Evo. that
The
is
Evo
kind of
founders,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's like a free-to-play fighting game.
Can you play it right now?
I think it's in alpha right now, yeah.
I think if your voice goes high pitched enough.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people like talking about playing it. And okay, Ultimate Chicken Horse, yes. Also, Yeek, a postmodern RPG. Normally, it seems a little bit like Always Sometimes Monsters was, where it like, or Sometimes Always Monsters, though whatever one it was actually out already. That it kind of like has RPG mechanics, but subverts them to tell like a modern narrative. That's how it feels right now from what I've seen of Yeek, a postmodern RPG. But mostly that one is like, well, the studio made. Oh wait, I'm so confused. The studio made Two Brothers, not Brothers. I didn't play Two
yeah,
Brothers.
I remember being confused by that a little while ago.
I was like, well, that's like a super big departure
Yeah.
for the Starbreeze or whatever that studio was
That's
called.
like
But no.
making a puzzle platformer and then making a stealth game for your sophomore effort. That's weird.
Always,
But-
sometimes two brothers.
Take a look at it regardless. And Wadham looks kind of cool. It's like kind of like a whimsical. It kind of looks like Little Big Planet a little bit, but it's not really Little Big Planet. I don't know. I'll just read the description here. After a series of unfortunate events, there was a gigantic explosion which spread the people of Wadham across the galaxy. As a result of this crazy boom, only a few people left, a few pieces of world, and the mayor are left. I misread that. Your task is to help the mayor and deputies bring all the people and places of Wadham back together by climbing, stacking, and chaining groups of people. So it's like a platformer puzzle game with some whimsy associated with it. And it has kind of like, those like Mr. and Mrs. books for kids? Like Mr. Angry, Miss
Right,
whatever. Yeah, it has an aesthetic that's kind of like that. It looks pretty cool. Apart from that, like, I'm actually interested in a lot of AAA stuff. Like, I feel like this has been the best year for like anticipated AAA releases in a long time. At least in the past 3 years. I really hope I get a chance to check out XCOM 2. I'm super stoked about that.
Now, who do we know
And-
is making a large AAA presence at PAX Prime?
You hope
2K
EA
always
is?
does.
I hope Ubisoft shows up and then has a really obscured booth where it looks like you're lining up to play Assassin's Creed Syndicate, but instead they just show you a gameplay demo when you get inside. They might give you like a little, they might give you like a foam monocle or something like that. I got nothing against it.
I'm not
But
allowed to say anything about Ubisoft anymore. I'm on thin ice already.
Is Fallout
I'm
gonna be
excited to.
I don't know if
Talk to
Fallout's gonna be
the-
there, yeah.
I'm excited to talk to the Gungeon people again and
Oh,
you
yeah.
know give them feedback from what we've played and get a little bit more in depth about where that game's going. I'm seeing Homefront: The Revolution, which will be interesting because I have no expectations of that game right now, and I'm in a position to be swayed. I'm doing an HTC Vive demo,
Ooh,
which is cool.
that sounds fancy.
VR,
And-
baby.
Yeah, and I'm excited about that. And I'm seeing Afterbirth, which of course I'm very excited about. Like right now I have an appointment at 5 p.m. on Friday to see Afterbirth. So I'm like, that's like perfect for me. I'll get like my work done in the early morning.
That essentially marks like the end of business at PAX Prime.
Exactly.
Right?
And then I'll show up at like Tyrone's hotel room for my Afterbirth appointment and be like, all right, let's spend like 4 hours playing this, hopefully.
Right.
That's the biggest reason I regret missing PAX, honestly, is for the Afterbirth demo.
Apart from that, I mean, I hope that maybe we can swing in and see Fallout 4 if they have it demoed. I doubt that we will because I'm sure that it's booked like crazy. But maybe someone can do some magic, you know? Bethesda has been open to this stuff in the past. Apart from that, I don't really know. I'm interested. Unlike PAX East this winter, I am like booked solid here. Like I'm every day from like 11 to 5. I'm set except for a small lunch break. So I'm excited to actually like see a lot of games. And hopefully, unlike PAX East Roundtable, it'll be like, well, I don't know what I'm excited for, and then we can come back and talk about all sorts of exciting games that we saw.
Right.
Instead of just like, well, I hope to see this, and then I saw like nothing.
Yeah, we've got high hopes for the post PAX show.
If you lose me, I'll be at the magic tables.
No, we're just going to be doing tabletop the entire time. That's what PAX is all about. These video game people came in here and sullied the good name of tabletop.
Well, that's the other
PAX
thing.
events.
So I'm like, well, after the show floor closes, MTG.
Yeah.
Day in, day out.
In our Airbnb, there will be BBQ and B, and then we'll be playing some MTG.
I have so many cards I'm bringing, so many pre-built decks. I'm psyched.
You repping the 313?
I'm repping the MTG.
You can't rep MTG, man.
I can try.
MTG doesn't need your repping. They got enough rep. That's PAX Prime Preview. Let's move on to, we're going to discuss briefly Wanderlust Adventures.
All right, I'm going to get some coffee.
Yeah! You drink a lot of coffee, man. He didn't hear me.
Oh,
say
he wasn't
that.
kidding.
Yeah.
I thought that time he was kidding.
Wanderlust Adventures. Myself, Nick, and Mathis tried this out for about an hour or so. Published by Chucklefish, the studio behind Starbound, and developed by Yeti Trunk. It's an action-adventure RPG, kind of akin to something like Diablo. You join fellow heroes online, explore vast and deadly landscapes, and capture companions to aid you in your quest. That all sounds like a run-of-the-mill 2D Diablo-ish experience, and that is exactly what it is.
I'd be like, and if that's what you assume, you are correct.
You are exactly right.
I think I hit it right on the head when I said it feels like Diablo meets MapleStory. Because it's got a lot of that same element of like, here's a lot of stuff you can see, but all of it is kind of superficial. There's a lot of inventory.
It has that feel of like, all right, nothing they're doing is wrong or broken.
Except for the inventory.
Well, the
Sorry, go ahead.
But like, as far as gameplay is concerned, it's like it all functions, it all works, but none of it stands out, and it's just this kind of blah, boring, gauntlet-ish, Diablo-ish experience where you sit there and you just press R trigger or L trigger until the enemy dies. And there's not a lot of impact. The spells don't have a lot of pizzazz, or nor does like your weapon swing or anything. It's just kind of just like you sit there and you spam a button, the enemy dies, and you get a piece of loot that goes in your inventory. You look in your inventory, and all the pieces of the inventory look exactly the fucking same, so there's no way to tell what it is unless you hover over it. And it just bored the fuck out of me.
The inventory management, there's no excuse for it, I don't think. They're all just little green and blue
Pips.
Pips, yeah, that's a good word for it. It's just there's no discerning between them. There's no uniqueness to any sort of item. It's all just stats. It's all just blanket stats pages. You look at the numbers. You have to go through individually and see like, oh, these are numbers that are better than my numbers. Let's just do that. But that's obviously like the core mechanic of a lot of the Diablo-esque games. But at least they could try to pretty it up a little bit with the actual visual elements.
Do we know it's done though? Do we know that's not placeholder art?
Let me take a look if it's in early access.
I am pretty sure it's out of early access. I don't know if they ever actually even had early access.
Because that would really take the wind out of our sails a little bit if it's like, yeah, no, we know. The art sucks. We're working on it.
No.
Like, I'd feel like a real jerk if that was
the
the
full
case.
release, yeah. So this, actually, Wanderlust Adventures is following the events of Wanderlust Rebirth. So there was another Wanderlust game before Adventures, and
I played that one actually.
Did you? Oh yeah, tell me
and
about
I
that.
was confused. So like, part of the reason, and this is like probably quote unquote journalistically irresponsible, but in 2012 when Wanderlust Rebirth came out, I played like 15 minutes of it, and I was like, this is not really for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I felt.
I found it kind of like, in a way, let me annoy even more people. It reminded me a little bit of Realm of the Mad God, where I was like,
Right.
this is okay, but it's just like borderline not interesting enough for me to justify spending the amount of time that it wants me to spend. Like, it just seemed like a time waster to me, and I'm like, I don't need a time waster.
Right.
For the most part. Like, I'm capable of wasting my own time if I'm going to waste it, you know? So that's why I wasn't really, like, that interested in playing Adventures, but, you know, I can't comment on Adventures because I haven't played it myself.
And it's also easily the sort of game where you could probably make the argument of, oh, you need to just get past like the first 3 or 4 hours. It's really grindy before you get into,
Possibly.
you know, X area or something like that. And I totally believe that could be the case here. It's just very difficult to do that. When you're trying to sell a new person who has not experienced something like this before on this game, you can't really say, oh, you know, I mean, it's gonna look like a grind fest that doesn't really have much appeal for the first quarter of it, and then you get really in depth. But
It's a lot of little things that really bothered me too. Like I said, like the combat didn't feel like it had an impact. My spells were incredibly underwhelming, even after I upgraded them and got the specials unlocked. But as much as the spells and the combat was underwhelming, there's a fuck ton of stuff happening on the screen all at once. Like, there's a lot of scenery around.
especially
and
when you're
there's-
playing with more than one person. Like,
Right,
if you have
and then
2 or 3 people in your party.
all the enemies look the goddamn same, and in that group of enemies you're fighting, there's typically one boss who's doing way more damage and hitting way harder and has a lot more health, but he looks barely any different than the rest of the enemies, so and trying to target him and figure out who you're trying to attack, who's killing you the most, is
Right.
a pain in the ass. And some of the enemies go invisible for certain parts of time, and you just kind of lose them, and they come back, and they're maybe in the bushes, or they're just in the clutter of the world, and it's just like, where the fuck is everybody? All right, I'm just going to spin around and throw fireballs and wait till I see health bars go down. It's just little things like that that really bring the experience down for me overall. At least with Diablo, it's flashy and fun.
Right. So I want to go through their bullet points, the ones that they've got listed on the actual game website, and I want to discuss those in depth. 4-player online co-op adventure and survival modes. The online does work quite well, to their credit. The online seemed to be pretty fluid. We all were able to join each other on single party pretty easily, and there wasn't any really latency or lag or anything like that. So that works very well. Massive free roam world to explore with multiple randomized dungeons to conquer. We can't really speak too much to this, again, considering we only invested about an hour to an hour and a half or so in the game, just trying to check it out. And yeah, I mean, the procedural generation was obvious, and the amount of just sheer stuff almost becomes a discredit to it, because it's sensory overload.
Homogenous.
Right, especially due to the fact that the color palette is not really that varied, so there's just so much of the same stuff coming at you all at the same time that it's very difficult to sort things out on screen. Dynamic events help sculpt a unique adventure each time you play. The events were kind of neat. We ran into a couple of those as we were going around. It's just random enemies that will show up, or there's like a slab of meat on a tree trunk or something, and if you interact with that, then these massive scorpions come out of the sand and try to take you down and immediately wipe your entire party because you have no idea how strong they are because it's totally randomized. 4 character classes.
Yep, that's true.
All right, yeah.
There were 4 of them.
There sure were. 40 plus enemies to battle, which I don't know. Yeah, good for you. Loot and crafting systems. We never really got into crafting too much, mostly because as soon as we... Yeah, there is. But just, it's so impossible to get past just the inventory screen. Seriously, like, that alone was enough of a deterrent for me to be like, I don't want to deal with that. There's all these green blips in this box.
I have to weigh in a little bit. I'm a guy that handles inventory stuff constantly. I play Terraria every day. I'm very used to spending my hours putting stuff in chests. And one of the biggest problems Terraria had was over the course of these 2 years, they patched in abilities to sort of auto-sort your loot and stuff because they understood that that's boring. and people don't want to spend a ton of time
Right.
looking at that stuff. And I'm also coming from a perspective of someone who loves ARPGs. I played a lot of Diablo. In general, I will play those and enjoy them. But the loot thing is a problem. You want to feel powerful. You want to feel like there's cosmetic changes happening to your character as you get better.
Oh, yeah,
you want to
Mathis
feel like
also
there's
said,
impact.
The paper. That's one thing the game lacked was the paper doll effect. You know, you put on a new piece of armor that's better, but your character looks exactly the same as he did when he spawned in. I'm wearing my pink robe and I got the same fucking staff I was wielding.
Right.
With Diablo, with Terraria, when you get cool shit,
You look awesome.
are wearing cool shit.
Right.
And you're like, all right, I feel like I accomplished something.
It's
Yeah.
almost more important to make the character look different than it is to have like meaningful quests in the game, just because people really care about that progression, in my opinion.
Yeah, you don't have a personal investment in how cool the guy you're getting the quest from looks. You want to be that guy.
He is simply a thing to hit A on a couple times until you now have a thing to go hit.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you kind of boiled it down to the brass tacks of what Wanderlust Adventures is all about there, too. But day-night cycle, which impacts gameplay. Yes, that does indeed exist. And then there's a pet and companion system as well, which was another thing that really we didn't get that far into. I'm curious whether deeper into the game, maybe like the item pool expands and then you start to actually, you know, like see proper upgrades and differences in your character and things like that. But even if that is the case, the fact that it doesn't exist within the first hour and a half or so, I mean, those are almost the more important times to show the character and to show the player that you're able to progress and see a visual difference in your character.
Hook us.
Hook you
us.
in, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I can't recommend Wanderlust Adventures the way it is right now. I think a lot of the people that enjoyed Wanderlust Rebirth are having a hard time recommending it as well based on the Steam reviews. So, it's interesting, but there's games similar to it that provide just a better experience than what Wanderlust Adventures has on hand
Nick,
right
you played
now.
a sorcerer too, right?
Yeah.
When we were playing, did you find aiming spells was kind of just a pain in the ass?
Yeah, so there's like on your right analog stick, it just sort of it goes in a 360-degree circle around your character, and you're just kind of moving that around, and it doesn't really nail where you want it to be most of the time. It does lock on though, right? Pretty sure it did.
Yeah, it's like as long as they're within like a particular field of view, it stays on the enemy,
But prioritizing targets can be a bit of a problem if you've got 5 of them all in the
and
same
they all look the
spot.
same.
Yeah.
I do want to say the soundtrack was really good. I really enjoyed the music in it. It's quite nice.
And there was some nice art assets to it as well. I imagine if you're in the right circumstances, it could look very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But all in all, I think it was just powered by systems that have potential but weren't fully realized at this point.
Yep, agreed. It's $15 on Steam. We'll have a link in the video description if you want to check it out for yourself as well. It's Wanderlust Adventures, published by Chucklefish, developed by Yeti Trunk. It kind of actually leads nicely into the discussion that we wanted to have today as well. Wanderlust employs a pixel art style that I think, if I recall correctly, Mathis, you weren't a huge fan of. Just the way that the game just looked in general.
Yeah.
So that got me to thinking, I've actually become a little bit burnt out on the pixel art style myself. It seems to be much more prominent these days, and I am not even going to come close to suggesting something like people are doing it because it's easier, because I'm so sure that that's absolutely not true.
Right,
It's
right.
just, it seems to be just kind of the trend that's going around right now. So I personally know that I am kind of getting turned off to pixel art games as a result of that. And now the conversation I want to have is whether or not you guys are feeling similarly, or what sort of art styles, what sort of aesthetic appeals may or may not influence your decision to play or to even cover a game.
For me, like, pixel art, I don't think... Like, I don't have an aversion to pixel art. I think there's good pixel art, bad pixel art, much like anything else out there. There are a lot of games that look similar to other games, but as long as the animation quality is good. What turned me off from Wanderlust pixel art is that, like I was saying before, it's just it's way too much going on. The animations weren't good. It was very NES and almost even slightly early SNES titles levels of animation, aka it was not really, it was like a couple frames here and there. I don't like that. If there's going to be pixel art, I want to see some beautiful animations with it. The only thing that I get graphically kind of turns me off is when I see a game, and I see a lot of these because I play a lot of survival games, that uses Unity, and you can so fucking tell it's just a Unity game.
Yeah.
When it's just shiny, plasticky Unity look. And I'm like, that's the only time I'm like, it looks like a fucking Unity game. It doesn't impress me.
It's a lack of art direction. You're embracing the default values of whatever the engine happens to be. And I feel the same way, actually, about a lot of that stuff, but I'll get into it in a minute.
I feel like the worst of all worlds is like a generic-looking 3D game.
Yeah, that's what Unity does a lot.
You see all these like free-to-play shooters where it's like generic like character models and like barely textured walls, and then like the M16 model from like Counter-Strike 1.6, and you're like, it's so hard.
You didn't even try.
Yeah, it has to be so mechanically good to make that interesting.
Yeah,
I don't think I know of a single instance where it has overcome default assets to become a good game anyway. So I think it's kind of like a death knell right there.
I agree.
Nick, I feel like you've got a lot of insight into this.
All right, sure. Well, so what I was just saying before, the whole default thing is huge, and that goes to both sprite art and polygonal art. In both elements, there are sets of assets you can get from different stores, put them all together, and what you get is a set of assets you got from a store, and it doesn't necessarily complement your vision for what you think should complement your game.
But it's not inherently wrong to use store-bought assets. Like,
No,
I feel
but
like
it's when you spam them.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a problem. If you have one tree model that you bought and you put 70 of them in the same orientation with the same lighting effect, with the same everything, it's going to look really bad.
The dead linger!
Right. And a lot of the time, procedural generation ends up being the reason that happens. And if you see that being the case and you're in charge of that, like, take some time and hand play some assets and then have there be random ones on top of it. I think that would be a lot better. Personally, I don't really have a bias one way or the other. I really do like some sprite art. I really do like some polygonal art. I think they both have moments where they can look lovely. Really just go in whatever direction complements the vision of what the game you're trying to make is. And as long as it fits within that vision, then you're probably going to be fine. It's just when you just sort of let the game filter through what assets you can find that it ends up becoming sort of a less than quality representation of you as a designer, in my opinion.
Art
You know what I
that
mean?
it looks like what you can make instead of like
Yes.
What you have
it should
aspirations
want
to
to
do,
make.
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. It sucks because, like, Unity has, in my mind, has this rap of, like, it's a Unity game. God, I don't want to play it because it's going to look a particular way and maybe even control a particular way. But then there are games out there like The Long Dark that's made in Unity that blows away any expectation. They went for the particular art style and they knocked it out of the park. Right. Hearthstone is made with Unity. Hearthstone looks and plays fantastically.
Night in the Woods is a Unity game.
Yeah, like, it looks so good, and it's just, but because Unity is such an easily accessible tool for early developers, you can, use it for free, or you could, unless you make a certain amount of money, I think, then you have to pay for it. Either way, because it's such an easily accessible engine, there's so many Unity games that just look the same. And it really, when I see a game, it's like built in the Unity engine, my brain, it's unfair my brain goes this way, but it's like, ugh, a fucking Unity game.
There's another level to it too, and I don't want to necessarily like say bad things to this developer because I think they actually produced a pretty good game. But Submerged is a good example of a game that is very pretty in still screenshots, but once you see the animation, you go, oh, this doesn't really hold up as well.
There's a lot of those.
And it sort of feels like, so there's the one level where you go, oh, look, that screenshot looks really pretty. Then there's level 2 where you go, all right, they got the animation down. It seems like they really put everything together nicely. But a lot of the time it doesn't make it past that level 2, and that's always unfortunate when that's the case. You can see so much potential in something, but animation ends up holding it back.
It's akin to like buying a house and people are taking photos of the second bedroom with the fisheye lens to make you think you got a master bed on the other side of the house.
It was one of the ones that did that pretty badly is a game that was kind of like a flash in the pan, like really popular for a couple months was Stranded Deep. Stranded Deep is that island survival game that's like in screenshots. It's like, wow, this game is really pretty. But once you get into like everything's really janky and just kind of like spamming in and stiff. And it's a shame that those games exist.
Wow, holy shit. that's a broad stroke. It's a shame those people created those things.
They're luring you in with a false sense of what the game actually looks like.
I don't know if it's necessarily malicious, but I think it ends up happening a lot of the time.
Yeah, I guess like a similar argument to be had there with the fact that Unity is just so prevalent in 3D games. I think RPG Maker may be kind of what's giving me the impression that there's an influx of pixel art styles going around. I think RPG Maker just makes it so you've got the framework for the idea and the story that you had in mind, and you don't have to do many of the more difficult aspects of like creating actual characters and background art and scenery, things like that, is kind of templated out for you to a certain extent. And that gives you more creative direction and freedom with the actual story that you wanted to tell, which could probably be made a better argument with games like To the Moon, for example. Like, To the Moon was an RPG Maker game that excelled and did a great job of just using the template provided to really focus entirely on the narrative and the character development and stuff like that.
Always Sometimes Monsters.
Tremendously. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
same
Something like
exact.
that, too. So, I think, again, the message we're trying to send is not inherently bad for you to use something like RPG Maker or Unity just because those are the entry-level tools that a lot of developers are using. It's just that there's so many ways that you can just sort of, I really hesitate to use the word, but lazily just sort of like throw things together and not want to worry about that instead of really just like trying to divert resources instead of just completely eliminating the effort.
Well, if you're going to lack in one area, you really need to make sure the other areas are going to excel.
Exactly, yeah.
That's
Can you
just
think of
where it is.
any games recently that are like really good despite having kind of, I don't want to say like bad, but maybe like generic or uninspired arts? Like one for me that I would say is I think Mount Your Friends is pretty ugly.
Yeah.
Maybe that game's hilarious. Kind
It's
of thing?
possible that Steger is listening or watching, and that's fine. I think that game looks pretty hideous, which in a way adds to the charm because it's a game that's about absurdity, but it looks like super XNAE. Like it looks like an Xbox Live indie game, which makes a lot of sense. But apart from that, I kind of struggle to think of anything.
Minecraft.
Yeah.
Right? Like Duck Game looks really good.
Yeah.
Duck Game has like cool pixel art.
I'm thinking of like just the games that I've enjoyed over the past month. So I'm thinking about stuff like Rocket League, which looks
great.
It looks fantastic. Darkest Dungeon has an amazing art style.
Super
Love
unique
it.
art style. I was actually going to raise Darkest Dungeon as kind of like, I think games like that have spoiled me this year because there's so much like volume in terms of stuff that comes out. Speaking of which, Volume also has like a super cool art style that is
Which uses
very
Unity
unique.
assets, I'm pretty sure. In fact, I think like the logo for Volume was an asset that Mike Bithell bought from the Unity store.
Is it? I'm trying to think of like I just can't come up with something.
Well, Goofball Goals looks like crap.
Goofball Goals looks horrible.
Everybody
yeah.
knows that, but it plays just fine. I even would go so
yeah.
far as to say Speedrunners isn't the best looking game, but
Okay.
mechanically it goes really well.
I would agree with that. I don't think Speedrunners looks bad, but
No, I don't think it
I've
looks bad
never
either.
in my life thought like, oh, this looks good.
It's a game that you just don't really consider the art, but it's functional and it's there and it gets the job done. And it's got a little bit of charm to it as well, but it's not the main focus.
You're right. That, like the boxes just kind of like pop out of the background.
I'm looking
Like it
through my
just
list
looks
of
like they were like.
games.
The thing
copy-pasted
is,
in
like,
there.
there's a lot of games now that they're successful because they use the art direction as a tool as opposed to just a background thing. So,
Right.
like, Ink is a very great example of this, actually, where
Yeah,
Ink
yeah.
uses art and uses the creation of color and platforms and shapes to play the game. Sorry about that. But there's a lot of games that are going that route, and that, I think, is maybe what has spurred me into thinking, why aren't people like prioritizing the look? Because that's integral to success, I think. I mean, you have to use trailers and screenshots to even sell your game to most people in the first place. You want to make sure that you've heavily invested in that. I see so many trailers and so many screenshots in my inbox of games that just, they're either completely run-of-the-mill, there's nothing unique about them whatsoever, or they just look bad.
Or they're
And you
mobile
gotta,
games.
yeah, like you gotta realize this game looks bad, right? When you're sending it to people, you see that and you say to yourself as a developer that it doesn't like look appealing.
It's very easy to get caught up in the loop of like, this is my baby and the mechanics feel really good to me, and you haven't experienced the mechanics yet because all you're getting is a screenshot or a trailer, and for you it's very quick to turn it off. And I do the exact same thing, and maybe more so than most YouTubers, in fact, since that's kind of a thing on my channel, is it's all about the art and it's about the discussion of the art behind it. So I don't know that this necessarily applies to everybody, but I feel like it's a thing that can't hurt. You know, if you really do go the extra mile on the art element, if you wow people visually before they even get into it, you've already gotten off on the right foot. and you're more likely to get people that'll spend more time spending their time getting interested in the mechanics. You know?
Yeah.
You got to catch our eye. I mean, that's gonna be the case not just for YouTubers, but as for consumers. You got to catch their eye before they can touch the game. So if you want someone to buy your game or try your game, you can't be like, well, I know it's ugly, but the mechanics are really good. For the most part, the vast majority of people are just going to look at a screenshot and be like, that looks ugly, and then just pass it over.
Yeah.
It's just a reality of the world that we live in.
I always feel so betrayed when I go on Game Jolt. Sorry, Ryan. And there's a single screenshot, and it's like a 3D rendered, really cool looking thing, and then I download it, and it's like an RPG Maker game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That happens so much. Yeah.
It's so often. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm kind of at the point. I don't know about you guys. I won't speak for you guys, but we come from. I won't speak for you guys. Then I'll use we as a pronoun. But I grew up in the era where people would have like long drawn out game FAQs discussions like, do graphics matter? And you blah, 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 blah. Graphics don't matter. Gameplay is the only thing that's important. But that's within like a AAA scope. Like that conversation serves a purpose when you're talking about, games that have teams of qualified artists and animators. So then it's like, basically, like, does this game look shinier than this game? Oh, this game looks like very impressive. Does that make it better than this game that plays better? No, of course. It's a circle jerk. Everybody knows that the gameplay is the most important. However, when we have this flood of games that come out where I feel like a lot of them just are kind of like generic or ugly, I do think that graphics matter. Like, I'm thinking of games like Lumino City that is just basically a point-and-click adventure game, some novel puzzle design depending on your perspective, but it's carried like almost exclusively as a result of its like papercraft, unique style visuals. And that's the focus of the development. The developers are not like, oh, we focused 100% on the gameplay and then it ended up being like kind of shitty, but at least the graphics look good. Like they were like, this is the game that we're making. It's 90% of our effort is gonna be involved in actually making the sets and stuff like that. And I played a game recently, Jotun, which is like, again, Norse mythology. That game is interesting, minimalistic, but it carried like a lot because of its art style. I played a little bit of Hyper Light Drifter. It's got cool mechanics. I feel like a lot of that is driven by the art as well. Even Darkest Dungeon. If Darkest Dungeon looked like the sprites were like Final Fantasy 1 quality sprites, I think people would be like, I'm not going to spend more than like 20 minutes on this game. Mechanically, it's great, but there's a huge barrier to entry with that kind of like super, seems generic or at least played out art style. And as more and more games come out, I think the curve just gets harder to like adhere to. Even people will be like, well, what about Shovel Knight? Shovel Knight is a game that looks like faithfully like an NES game, but it's animated so fluidly, and there's a ton of stuff on the screen, and
it's in motion. It's beautiful.
And not only is there a ton of stuff on the screen, but it all is so distinct from one another because that was exactly what they did intentionally. They separated elements by making things unique and like just defining lines. I don't know art.
Shovel Knight was masterfully made from fucking beginning to end.
Contrast and saturation and hue and stuff.
The Shovel Knight team, Yacht Club, they have a postmortem that goes into like how they made their game. Basically what it is like a really complex or advanced graphical system that then they dumbed down in display to make it look like it's still an NES game. Like the stuff going on behind the scenes, according to the postmortem, is super like, they're like, yeah, we animated like 60 frames per second. The NES only animates at like 4 and something like that. Like that's why it looks so good. Obviously that's an exaggeration. Yeah. Right. But people who look at something like Shovel Knight and they're like, well, just do your pixel art as good as Shovel Knight. That's like really hard, but at the same time, I feel like that's where the standard is approaching now.
It should be there, too. There's nothing wrong with there being a bar that seems insurmountable, because that indicates progression of the
I don't know, I kind of disagree a little. I think that you have plenty of latitude to go in any direction that feels like it complements your work and what you think you're trying to accomplish. Whether or not it conforms to any kind of standard that we feel we have, I mean, ultimately it doesn't really matter as long as it's unique and interesting. And there's hundreds of different ways to make engaging art, and there's hundreds of different people with different subjective opinions of what is interesting. So, there's no need to say, like, oh, it's got to look a certain standard. Just, make it look unique. Make it look unique.
I hope I wasn't, like, sending that message. I'm just saying, like, you should aspire to, like, exactly. Like, be unique and, like, put an effort into, like, giving your game a look and feel that
don't buy a fucking store asset pack and then go, that's my game look.
Yeah.
If you use them all. Here's like I agree. You should be able to make whatever kind of game you want. And maybe you're happy with its success regardless. But if you are pushing it out and you're wondering, like, oh, why is nobody, like, playing it? From a YouTube perspective, why is nobody, like, playing my game and showing it to other people? Or from a store perspective, like, why is nobody buying my game? That might be an element of it. I kind of feel like in the last couple of years, we've kind of made, like, a AA game industry. Yeah. Like, it's very rare now for there to be, like, a one-person project that stands out. Axiom Verge. That dude worked on that game for like 6 years. That's crazy.
He made everything. Man. He made the soundtrack too, and it's so good.
Yeah. If that's where you have to go to like get to that level as a single person team, I don't want to go there.
It's almost impossible to respect
I can't do that. You know, and people will see something like, you know, Volume, and they'll be like, oh, that's a Mike Bithell game. He has a team working on it with him. And Darkest Dungeon has a team. Like, they were working on Darkest Dungeon for, like, a year before it came out in early access. Like, all of this stuff that is like, oh, it's an indie game. Like, we are almost, like, delineating indie games.
Yeah.
Now, like, there's, like AA indie games that might have a team that's, like, 10% of the size of a AAA game, but is, like, orders of magnitude, unorder of magnitude, like, mathematically larger than a single or a double-person team.
We got AAA, we got indie, and then we have, like, some dude or some girl games.
Yeah, exactly. So you have like I don't want to call it hobbyist, but I can't think of too many single or even double person teams that are successful. You got Team Meat, like financially successful. And obviously, the lower your overhead, the more successful you are. But Team Meat, but even then, you know, they haven't done anything since Rebirth. They haven't come out with anything since Super Meat Boy.
How many people are on Team Meat? Just two?
Just the two of them, as far as I know. At least for Super Meat Boy. But
there's Mossmouth.
Mossmouth has a team.
I think it's
more than
two.
just him. It's more than just him and Andy. Like Andy Hull did the.
Yeah, I thought it was just Derek and Andy, but
maybe it is.
Let's see.
Lucas Pope, I think, is a great example. Who did like basically everything for Papers, Please, and he did it in 8 months. You know,
in his other game coming out too, the pirate one or whatever.
Yeah,
it looks so pretty.
The Curse of the Obra Dinn.
It's really cool.
It's such
really,
a cool
It's
looking
such a
game.
good concept, and the graphics back it up 100%.
Oh, I can't wait for that game.
I think it takes like a singular genius, basically, or at least a lot, like an incomprehensible amount of hard work.
Well, you got Polytron, right? And they sort of had a little bit of both. How long did
Polytron
Fez take?
A small
you want to open up the can of worms talking about Polytron now?
Look, I'm just going around the edges. That's all.
Yeah,
just licking the edges,
just teasing it.
So I don't know. I understand that it's difficult, but at the same time, you can make whatever you want. But I think if you want to have like that. If you're looking to have that indie game, the movie style success, where you're like, I busted my ass and I was like derelict, and then my game came out and I'm a millionaire. Like, you really need to swing for the fences now. Like, it's not unknown territory anymore.
I mean, it's just because of the time, like how much has happened since then. I mean, just using our life as an experience, similar to doing YouTube. It's fucking 6 years ago. You could jump in. You might have been able to jump into this and just do this, and you would have become successful. But now, if you jump in, you have to. There's so much more you have to overcome, and it's the same with indie games. You can't just jump in and be like, "I'm gonna make this one little neat indie game. It'll become the next indie game darling, and I'll be super rich." No, the bar has been set so high at this point because so many indie game darlings have hit the scene.
There's still room for the occasional. I mean, Five Nights at Freddy's kind of did that.
But it's harder to get there, I'd say. Like it's
and a lot of it was
more.
To do with YouTuber exposure, right?
Yes.
Is that fair to say? Okay.
Oh, that's absolutely fair to say.
The indie game, the movie comparison I brought up isn't even fair because all three of the games profile in the indie game, the movie also have like they stand out. Not just it's not like the only three indie games you could buy from like 2008 to 2010 were Super Meat Boy, Braid, and Fez. Specifically because Fez didn't come out until 2012 anyway. But like Braid is a game Jonathan Blow made it, and you can see like early prototypes. And look at the art, and the art is like it's programmer art. So he's like, oh, I'm gonna pay this dude. I think it was like literally $25,000 he paid the dude, which now is probably a steal. But he paid the guy to make the art. I forgot the
dude was Edmund McMillan, wasn't it?
No, he did the character design for Tim.
That guy, Edmund McMillan.
Yeah. And he handed me a crisp $100 bill. But yeah, so I wish I remembered the guy's name. It's like David something. David Art Braid. David Braid Art. David Hellman. That's it. Still got some of it up here. And that's what sets Braid apart. It's cool mechanically. It's got great puzzle design, ingenious puzzle design. But if it looked like shit, people wouldn't have paid as much attention to it for sure. And what people remember is the art and the soundtrack and then some of the puzzles as well. Super Meat Boy looks great, runs great, and it has that kind of like Edmund Macmillan style, like cute.
Sometimes it runs great. Sorry.
Well, yeah, sometimes it crashes or has frame rate issues, but it has that like Edmund Macmillan style, like cute grotesqueness that is like accessible but cool in a way that's not super played out. And Fez it's beautiful. The thing what you want about Fez, but Fez is a gorgeous looking game, which I think it helps it get that, and obviously had a novel kind of graphical hook to it as well with the rotation thing. But
pixel art too, so
exactly.
Worth making the point that pixel art is not inherently bad either.
Yeah, no, all those games look beautiful. I think it's a misnomer to say that like indie game graphics don't matter. I can't think of a game in like the past year or two that I liked even decently, in spite of the fact that it looked like total shit. But art is subjective as well, so
yeah. There's the disclaimer at the end of all of this too. Don't let us tell you how to make your game. If you want to make a game that looks like a Unity game, do it. You do whatever you want. The
reason this came up in the first place, I told Bear, hey, do you want to try this game, Odalus The Dark Call? I thought it was one of the best Metroidvania games I've played in like a year. And he was like, yeah, it looks cool, but like I'm just not really I'm not in the mood to play a pixel art game right now. I was like, all right. So I just wanted to tell people, hey.
Which, is that valid? I mean, like, genuinely, does that seem just like sort of a write-off to it? Or, I don't know. I couldn't wrap my head around it at the time of like, the only thing that's steering me away from this is I'm kind of tired of pixel art games right now.
I think it's like a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater thing, where let's say we go take yourself back to like 2007. If Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 8 comes out and people are like, this one's really good, I think it's still fair to be like, you know what, I'm kind of done with like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games for now. Which is not to say that I'm like anti-pixel art, but I've played a lot of games that are like, we are going to make like an NES-style game. We're going to faithfully recreate how games looked on the NES, and we're going to come out like that. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to play it. It just means that there's a much larger barrier to entry. Especially, like, right. I know I harp on you for this, and half of it is joking, but, like, to get me to be interested in an action platformer with retro aesthetics at this point is, like, it has to be so good.
Yeah. It has an unending void of that.
Yeah.
And I honestly think this is comparable to Shovel Knight. I think it's that good.
All right. No. But on your word, I will take that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted to mention it is because there's a lot of people out there who are not realizing that when they send out emails to YouTubers, and this is in the context of me having watched Bear's GDC talk, there are people sending codes to YouTubers that might not realize sometimes we just don't cover your game because we just are played out on a certain thing that you have no control over, and it's not your fault. And we mean you no ill will when that happens. It just happens on occasion. There's little trends that kind of go through us.
Dude, that's what's so scary, I gotta feel about being like a game developer, is like you kind of like work on your own thing for a year or two and don't talk to anybody, and then you come out with it and people are like,
The Prestige just came out. I don't want another magician movie right now.
Yeah. Even like, despite that, like you work like 4,000 hours on this game, and you send an email, and then like somebody opens it up, if they even open it up, and they're like, doesn't look like my kind of thing. And then it's just like, oh, okay. Like Mike Bithell was saying, he's like, okay, get back in the game developer box. Like, see you in 2 years. Come out with something else. And, like, you feel bad about it, but at the same time, you know, it's the reality of the industry right now.
Yeah.
There's too much.
And to even break down the barriers more than that, I'm so reluctant to even just engage people. And I hesitate to reply a lot of the times because I don't want to say like, hey, I don't like it. Sorry about your livelihood not really being interesting to me.
I'll look into it, and if I think it fits my channel, I'll make a video, and I'll let you know if I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope this didn't come out as me throwing Bear under the bus for this. I really just wanted to say, like, we all have different preferences, and for me, I never get tired of that kind of thing. For others, maybe they do, and that's okay. Thankfully, there's hundreds of us all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Just don't send us emails during PAX week because you'll get buried.
Yeah. Well, actually, just don't email any of us until September is probably safe.
You need like a 2-week buffer zone, actually.
Right. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about volume. Speaking of Mike Bithell and his game developer box. Volume is Sorry. Yep, you go.
Oh,
no,
you say game's doing very well review-wise. Like, it's all the reviews I've read are like 8s and ups, and people are loving it.
What's an up? You said 8s and ups.
8s and up.
Like an up
Eights,
vote?
like up, like, like an up, like an up vote, like 8.5, 8.9.
I'm gonna create an entire new site. The entire review system is just gonna be ups and downs.
There you go. I like it.
Yeah. I can't think of anyone else who's tried something like that.
A narrative stealth action from Mike Bithell, creator of Thomas Was Alone, if you're not familiar with the name. Or actually, if I say his name is hashtag Mike Bithell, a lot of you might actually remember who it is. Thomas Was Alone is nothing like this. Volume is entirely different, although it does also include Danny Wallace, again, who I like a lot. So, I want to touch on this before we even get into talking about the game proper. Charlie McDonnell is a YouTuber. A lot of you may know him as Charlie Is So Cool Like on YouTube, and he plays the main character Robin Loxley. This is a modern take on the Robin Hood story in Volume, and his presence and his performance were. I can't even find the right words for it anymore. I was confused by it. It's very, very, very casual.
It feels out of place.
It sounds like he's making an effort to be conversational, which is the last thing you want to do when you're trying to be conversational. I don't want to try to like critique him as though like I'm the world's greatest voice actor, because I actually suck at it, as I learned from the people who reviewed the one game that I voice acted for. But it just kind of takes you out of it a little bit, just because Danny Wallace's performance is just stellar and legendary, and he's incredible. And when you pit the two against one another, I think this might even be Charlie's first endeavor into, like a major role in voice acting in a video game. So no discredit to him there either. But I don't know. It took me out of it a little bit. Maybe it would help if I didn't know who he was. That would maybe give me a little bit more...
It did for me.
Okay, that's good.
Honestly, yeah. I thought the atmosphere was kind of interesting tonally. It kind of rides the line between being slightly tense but also kind of humorous, which I don't think you can necessarily do that easily. So for me, not knowing who he was, I felt sort of okay with it.
Okay, good. There we go. Yeah, as far as the actual game is concerned, Mathis, what do you think of Volume?
So I have a couple hours in the game so far. Not a huge amount.
Did you beat any of my times?
No. I did. I don't care.
You got you got an unbeatable time up there.
The game does what it does well enough. It's not that it's bad. Clearly, people love it. I am not really blown away by it. I just am kind of bored right out the gate with it. I just didn't. It's just I like stealth games, but I think I like more action-oriented stealth games like Splinter Cell and stuff. This is very pure stealth. Oh yeah,
absolutely. Like no violence, no action. This is a stealth
and there's a lot of
through.
Just waiting and like pattern recognition, and that bored me. And the aesthetic bores me a little bit. I don't know. A lot of the game just feels very mediocre, blah to me. And I know, again, from what I've read, what people have said, they love it so far. For me and my tastes, it doesn't really tickle me where I'd like it to tickle me.
I like that. That's a good Steam quote.
And there's some ways to like kind of cheese the AI. Like you can just gun it for a checkpoint and like alert all the AI, but as long as you hit that checkpoint, you can kind of like then go back to that checkpoint and skip all the shit that you ran through and be like, yeah, that really served no purpose. Why am I trying to sneak by these guys when there's a checkpoint there and just can run to it and avoid having to really sneak around?
You have to clarify, too, to make that have sense and context. The guards all take about, 3 seconds before they shoot you. So once you get within their vision cone, you have that amount of time to either cling to a wall or run for a checkpoint. And for me, a strange thing was that I was enjoying kind of breaking the AI, because every time you hit a wall, you can cling to walls. I would go around a corner, and then I would kind of toggle it on and off, and every time you went around that corner, they would completely lose you, and it reset their timer.
Yeah.
And I'm betting a lot of this stuff is going to get patched.
Yeah,
it doesn't complement the gameplay very well to break it down.
No, it doesn't.
Easily.
It's actually really easy to break the AI in this game. You can kind of just go around the walls, and they'll be like, oh, he's gone. All right. And it's like, dude, I literally went 2 inches.
Well, they're like virtual reality guards. They're probably supposed to be more like systems than actual people, I guess.
I feel like the decision to split the levels into checkpoints is like a compromise made to make the game not super punishing and like trial and error and difficult.
Right.
But like you said, it does lead to them not really being levels, but like series of puzzles that you can succeed by failing at them. Like if, like you said, if a guard is close enough to a checkpoint, you can aggro the guard, run through the checkpoint, and then when he shoots you, you'll respawn at the checkpoint, but the guard won't be aggroed. So effectively, like you got past that obstacle without actually doing it properly, which is fine if that's the way it's designed. It might actually be the way it's designed, is to be like self-contained puzzles within the scope of like a larger level. But it leads to some weird, almost like anti-stealth stuff where you're like, well, I see how I could sneak by this guy, but instead if I want to get the best time possible, I'll just run. And then like if I get to the checkpoint, like the timer doesn't tick up, the timer resets to where you were at the time that you went through the checkpoint. So there's little punishment for it, unlike Trials where, you know, it could take you 100 tries to do something right, but the tries count against you, the faults count against you.
It's the whole timer thing I actually don't like that much because it brings up, it actually gives me feelings of Hitman Absolution, of like doing things in a particular way is the only right way to do them, and any other way you're not going to get the best time.
There's an optimal approach to every single stage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Hitman Absolution had that same problem where if you didn't do things the way the game wanted you to do it, you would take point hits and you wouldn't have the highest score. So like, if you got rid of the timer and I could approach this like a stealth game and not worry about being on the leaderboards, maybe I would enjoy it a little bit more and not be like, you know what, fuck it, going for the checkpoint.
So I think in that regard, he had to make maybe a conscious decision between two things. He either wanted to go the route of longevity of the experience and allow people to, you know, like build better levels and get better times and have that sort of community aspect to it, or he wanted to go the direction of making it a very heavily story-driven narrative experience that would probably just eliminate the timer altogether and give you more of a sense of, oh, this is all just like one linear thing that we get to play through.
Right, right.
And he chose the former, obviously, because that's better for business
they're kind
almost.
Of both there at times, depending on how you want to play it. But I think if you see the timer, you're going to be incentivized to want to beat your friends, obviously, which then creates this metagame of how can I break the game as much as possible to get through it faster, which is almost, in my eyes, more fun than the game that's presented traditionally. And maybe that's a weird way to look at it, but I find the restrictions that are placed in a game like this for stealth games in general, it's very linear. And to be able to have a little bit more autonomy is more engaging to me. So breaking the game or figuring a way around the AI, I find that more challenging mentally than wait for a patrol, memorize the pattern, walk through where the lights aren't.
I agree with you, too. I think what caught me off guard, I think there were two big things that caught me off guard with this. First of all, I think if I didn't know anything about it going into it, I would probably have liked it more, because I think the hype train maybe sullied my experience of this one a little bit.
What's interesting about that is like, I have a little bit of the same thing, but then I'm like, why am I hyped for this?
Yeah.
Like, he made Thomas Was Alone. Thomas Was Alone is a good game, but it was not like, I mean, I'm friends with Mike Bithell, so I hope this doesn't come across as offensive, but it was not like a masterwork. Yeah. Where I'm like a hallmark of the genre that everybody needs to play.
It was
a nice
cool.
story.
Yeah.
I think it was among the best platformers from that year, and that's pretty heady praise considering there were probably like 1,000 that came out. But when I was like, I had the same thing. I was like, there's this hype machine for volume, and then you think about it, you're like, well, it's the successor to a game. The last game he made was like just a quirky kind of like narrative puzzle platformer. It's so weird that there's like this huge hype surrounding volume, which I get, you know, good on him for marketing it to get that level of hype. But when you look at the actuality, I'm like, this is weird.
I think it was a little bit of self-service in that too, because he marketed it in such a way that made it feel like such a bigger project than it really is. I think Volume as a 100 level stealth game is great, but it's not, you know, BAFTA award-winning, just precedent for the entire marketplace. This is the new standard for this sort of game. No, it's a good stealth game.
Yeah,
it
and I
kind of
think
boils
that's
down to that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I probably fall into the same camp as you, Bear. Like, maybe the hype was too high, and I don't know. Like, same thing with like Ryan. Like, why was my hype high? I don't know.
We just bought it.
Yeah,
I just bought into it. It's like, it's a Mike Bithell game. It's like he's made one game, and it was pretty good. I guess I should be excited. But it's a very pure stealth game, and I'm just thinking maybe pure stealth games aren't my thing, because I found myself just bored.
Right.
I from the sounds of it here, I think I probably have the most positive opinion on the game. I like it for a couple of reasons that I'll articulate here, because this is my 5th grade public speaking project. I think the art style is a really strong positive in the game's factor to the game's benefit.
Elegant, clean.
Elegant is a really good way to describe it. The levels all are constructed out of they're not procedurally generated, but they're constructed out of different elements level to level that all have different colors, and there's this very kind of neon aesthetic that often comes up. So it's very bright and kind of unusual, which is cool. And the character design, the animations, I think they look okay. But mostly it's the way that the setting looks that I think is interesting. Mechanics wise, I like that it's. I dislike the checkpoint system. I'll say that because again, part of stealth games for me, that part of the drive is being it's not just self-contained puzzles. It's not just get by this guard, get by this guard, get by this guard. It's get by this guard, and then I have to get by the other guard in a way that doesn't fuck up what I already did to the guard that came first. Like in Splinter Cell, if I walk past a guard and then I pull out a grenade and blow up the guard that's just past him.
The guy before was like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, he'll be like, there's a grenade, right? Mm-hmm. But in this, they're more self-contained, which I think compromises the levels a little bit. It turns it into more a series of tiny obstacles rather than one unified level. Mm. I also find that it's very gamey. The gaminess of it is very transparent. In a lot of stealth games, your objective will be abstracted, pick up the dossier or something like that, rescue POW. In this, every single level is
get the diamonds,
get all of the gems, get to the exit, right? Yeah. So I do tend to dislike games, or at least have a negative bias towards games that kind of do that. I'm more of a Mario guy than a Rayman guy, if that makes sense. I don't give a shit about collecting coins. Even in Super Meat Boy, the bandages are of secondary concern to me. I don't really care about stuff like that. So to have to do every level and get the gems, I'm it pulls. It's a little bit immersion breaking, which I normally don't care that much about. But it's well, if I'm caring about this training simulation, it seems weird to be get all the gems and then get to the exit. And I agree that the story is a little dissonant with the themes of the game, the actual gameplay of the game, and I think that the voice actor on Loxley is it seems a little laissez-faire, which I'm sure is probably how it was directed, but it does come across kind of airy, I guess.
I think what stands out for his performance for me is somebody told him, I want you to be very casual with this.
Extremely. Yeah.
And he took that to heart, and he did that, but it seems so clear that that's what happened, and that's just sort of an inherent problem with it.
Yeah.
I like this story a lot. I like the idea of the modern Robin Hood. I think the way it's presented may need a little help, because it's all exposition. Yeah. And a lot of it is text-based.
Oh man, I just clicked through that.
Yeah. My problem with the story is also that anytime if you have a big piece of dialogue, let's say it's 15 seconds long, if you get spotted by a guard, it plays the alert sound, and
exactly
when the guard stops being aggro, it plays it again from the start. Or if you restart the level, then it plays that dialogue again from the start. It would have been nicer if they could have scripted it kind of irrespective of those triggers, so the dialogue just sort of kept going. Yeah. I understand that's a problem, but
a GTA 5 style natural flow to where there's an interruption and then
you're on
which is a high bar to set, but also I
think it's just a difference in philosophy. Like you said in Grand Theft Auto 5, you'll be on a phone call with somebody and you'll be I want you to go kill the sea, and then you get in a car crash and you're hey, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then 2 seconds later, the guy's just
anyway.
He just keeps going, which is jarring, but at the same time, at least you don't have to hear the AI be 3 days, 26 hours, blah,
Well, Ryan, you pointed out that it was very mechanically driven and that there was always these diamonds everywhere, and I felt the same way, that it seems very much like it's a gamey type of game. So to have so much of this heady dialogue when I'm trying to play it to break it in a way, and then I keep getting all of these constant audio cues, you've been spotted, immediately not spotted anymore, you've been spotted again, spotted again, spotted again. I got tired of hearing that audio cue over and over and over again. So it made me wonder, did they design this not to be played the way I'm playing it? And if so, am I doing something wrong? I never want to have that kind of dissonance,
Flush all the toilets.
Right.
My experience with it right now is that maybe it's trying to be jack of all trades. It's a game that has a leaderboard element, so you can focus on that if you want to. And it has a story element, so if you don't care about the leaderboards, you can still be like, well, there's something driving me to keep playing.
And there's custom levels too, which you can make whatever you want out of it. So
what I really like about the game is the same thing I always talk about in stealth games that do this, like Mark of the Ninja, where everything is on the screen, so it becomes less of trial and error and more of just a puzzle. Like when you look at it, you're like, okay, this guard has this vision cone, and he walks in this direction. I have this, what is it called? The bugle. So I have the bugle. I can throw it and then trigger it and make a sound, and that'll distract the guard. So you make like a plan in your head, and then you execute it. You're not just doing it on the fly like, well, I hope this guard doesn't see me. And I really like that all the systems are on the screen, and I think it makes it engaging. I think of it less as like a stealth game and more almost just like a linear puzzle game.
Right.
But in a way, that's what compromises the whole checkpoint system to me somewhat. Whereas, like, well, I got a solution that's good enough. I can get far enough away from the guard that I can run to the exit before he shoots me, and then after he shoots me, I respawn here. So I think it's a good game, and I really like the kind of like puzzle box style of it. I find it relatively engaging. Not that interested in the story, unfortunately. Strong aesthetic. Also, the alert is like really loud.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Other times it isn't. I've noticed it goes in multiple volumes.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Ironically, yeah. I think it's good. I agree that probably the thing that I'm most negative on about the game is the fact that my anticipation level was probably much higher than the game warranted, given where it's coming from. You know, it's a small game. I played for when I was in London, I played at Mike's apartment for like 2 hours. I mean, I got like 25-30% of the way through the game. And I played like an hour here, and I got like 25-30% of the way through the game. I feel like it's probably a 4 to 6 hour game if you mainline the story mode. It's a small game. It's good. It's fairly simple in like a way that I don't mean as offensive, but it's certainly not like it's not like a transformative experience. And I don't blame Mike Bithell at all for marketing the game the way that he marketed it. Yeah. If I had a successful game and then poured a lot of the money from that successful game into my sophomore app, like why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like try to get as much hype as possible. And I don't think anybody's going to play this and be like, you know, it's not going to be Daikatana or something like that.
Oh,
I think
no.
The most you're going to get is people having kind of like, or the worst you're going to get is people having like a lukewarm reception to it. Like, maybe I built this up a little bit too much in my head. I think mechanically it's strong and probably will benefit from a little bit of hindsight, like from being away from the release of it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think those who have no idea who this person is are going to enjoy this game the most.
Yeah, I think that makes
bottom line.
I think that makes sense.
I'm not even a stealth guy. I could kind of appreciate the puzzle element to it. I just wish there were maybe a little bit more in terms of like mobility options, because it felt a bit crawly a lot of the time, and that's the pacing I'm sure he wanted to set intentionally. But it feels at odds with the leaderboard system as well. I want to be able to, you know, stealthily and quickly move through these spaces, but there's these walls that are just slightly taller than my shoulder, and I can't get over them. And I'm like, just let me go over those.
That's The first like 20 minutes, you're like, okay, what's the vault button?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I saw Ryan had a freaking impossible time. I'm like, did you know the mantle button? And I just can't find it on the controller.
So if anybody's playing Volume and they're like on the second level, how the fuck did Cash Cab get like a 4-second time when the next best time is like 35 seconds? Basically, I just did the first level a lot to try to get the best time, and somehow it committed the score to the second level. So, there you go.
There's your secret.
There's your bug report. I accidentally committed a time to the wrong leaderboard somehow, and now look like a fucking god.
Well done.
Good job.
All right. Well, that's Volume. It's out right now on Steam. It's a special offer, ends the 24th of August, so if you're in early listenership of this episode, you can probably get it for a couple bucks off. Otherwise, it is $20. The Triptych edition includes the making of ebook, which is kind of neat, as well as the original soundtrack, and you pick that up for 25 bucks. And that brings us into everybody's favorite news segment. It's Ask Roundtable. Hey.
I thought of an ugly game I had a good time with.
What is it?
Eldritch.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't know that I consider Eldritch ugly.
You don't? I
either.
think it was ugly.
I don't consider it generically ugly, at least.
I've got a slate up already. We're on to the next segment.
All right.
I had a great metaphor. I think that Eldritch is kind of like Maggie Gyllenhaal. It's like, it's not classically beautiful, but it's got a deliberate attractiveness to it.
Okay.
Whatever, man.
Ask
Mike Bickle.
Roundtable about Maggie
Ask
Gyllenhaal.
Roundtable, yeah. You can send your questions into roundtableyt@gmail.com, and we will answer them for you. Today's question comes from Tyler. Hi, Tyler. Tyler wants to know, I mainly watch your channels for all of your entertaining personalities and want to know more about you guys. How did you guys all meet each other? Did you meet before becoming YouTubers, did you meet after becoming YouTubers, or were any of you friends beforehand? What about the guests in your videos? Any other hobbies or jobs as well besides YouTube and games? Thanks, Tyler, for the question.
Jeez, Tyler, you want my social security number too? Fuck.
Wow.
How do we meet each other?
How do we meet each other? Yeah.
And do we have any hobbies outside of?
Okay.
YouTube?
All right, I'm gonna try to work backwards through this.
Yep.
I met Nick because we've gone over this before. He made custom levels for Super Meat Boy. I played one of his custom set of levels and got really frustrated with it, but we somehow got in contact as a result of that. And
I
then
think through Kate, actually.
Kate has served as an intermediary, yes, for like pre-NLSS interactions. Here we are. Mathis connects to the Nick chain, where at PAX East, I guess it was 2013. No, it was 2012.
2012.
No, sorry, it was
13.
2013.
It was definitely
13?
13.
It was early 2013, though.
All right.
Obviously.
Something.
But then this guy, Mathis, was like, hey, well, you did ask me a question in an FAQ about like if we could like meet up and grab lunch or something.
And you said yes.
And I said yes because I'm not going to say no on stream. That just makes me look like a dick. But then when we were at PAX, and once I get inside of the convention center, I'm very unmotivated to do things. But Nick was like, oh, we should hang out with this guy. And I was like, all right, if he does like all the work, then that's fine. If he's going to walk over.
All the work.
If he buys us lunch, I guess we'll go.
The work was literally he had to find us, not the other way.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we hung out with Mattis for a while. We talked Crusader Kings. And he came back to our hotel room and we fucked. And then here we are.
One
Now-
of those is true.
We did have a lot of beer, so I don't know what happened after that.
Yeah.
Bear is interesting. I'm trying to remember.
Red Panda Gamer brought him in.
I think Red Panda Gamer was the link in the chain,
Yep.
but I don't remember what we did together first.
I think I was telling Nick this the other day. I remember the first real Twitter interaction we ever had was regarding the Merle and Durrell presence in the Walking Dead trailer.
That's a great memory.
That was old times, man. That was like 2 fucking years ago.
Wow, that was
Ages
2
ago,
years
yeah.
ago?
Yeah.
Crap.
But the reason Ryan is explaining all this was because every other meeting basically took place by proxy through Ryan. So we all got to know each other as a result of us, knowing all the same people, more or less.
Yeah.
So there's that.
That's how the NLSS Circle Jerk was formed.
That's right.
The circle just expands. There's all sorts.
Yeah.
It's got like branches that I am unaware of now. It's just a wild thing in and of itself. Who are like
The
unified-
archaeology of the NLSS Circle Jerk.
Exactly.
Golden
If you look at, like,
bongs, older than the Bible.
Yeah.
Sorry.
if you look at the family tree of like things that the NLSS has bonds that it has created. I'm like,
Oh, I meant the genealogy. What the fuck is the archaeology of the NLSS?
Well, that's like-
Circle
That's
Jerk?
why I said the bongs.
Yeah. Okay, well, the other part of the question, any other hobbies or jobs besides YouTube and games and Magic the Gathering?
Damn it!
Have you heard of Magic the Gathering?
You like amiibos, apparently.
I do like amiibos.
That's not really a hobby. That's more of
No.
another addiction. You're really just an addict, I think, is your hobby on the side, is you like to get addicted to things.
Better get addicted to cards and amiibos than fucking hard drugs.
Yeah, hey, don't judge me.
everybody's got some kind of.
I'm not on hard drugs, I'm kidding. just soft drugs, just like really easygoing drugs. I like to, I liked to play sports when I had friends. And now that I moved to a new place, I don't know anybody. So I try to go pick up basketball at the gym, but really I just end up shooting baskets by myself and being too afraid to talk to anybody, because that's exactly who I actually am in person, is a complete social introvert who is terrified of speaking with other people.
We all
I've
are.
been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Speaking of Magic,
Yeah.
I'm too terrified to go to my local game store, like for Friday Night Magic.
Did somebody recognize you?
Well, that would be a nightmare in and of
Yeah.
itself. But also, I'm like, these guys, these fucking alpha males know so much more about Magic than I do. I'm gonna be like,
Excuse me, I'm gonna run an interrupt during your second main phase.
yeah, I'm gonna be
Judge!
like,
That's not even that weird of a thing to say, though.
I'm gonna
No,
be like,
but Ryan might not know what it
did
is.
I play a land this turn? And they're gonna be like, this guy's a poser. Get out.
He's a
You
fraud!
got your little rules reference card that came with
Yeah.
the box. You're like,
All right, hang on.
An alarm goes off and the freaking store owner's got an axe standing up on top of a table.
It's like I show up, the guy's gonna be like, "Give me your mythic rares." I'm like, oh, come on,
The
Jerome.
bullies at the Friday Night Magic, man. Come on.
Jerome, I just unpacked this hangerback walker. Oh, nice. That would be perfect in my Thopter deck. Thanks a lot.
It doesn't work in his Thopter deck. That only works in your Thopter deck. Jerome is built around Thopter meta. He's got a sideboard prepared for your Thopter deck, honestly.
Jerome
He's
just plays
prepped
flavor
for
of the
that.
month.
Yeah, that's true. Jerome's a dick.
Fuck
damn it,
Jerome.
Yeah. Yeah, we're pretty goddamn uninteresting outside of the YouTube parts of us. So.
Speak for yourself.
I used to play music. I was in a band in high school, and I was thinking about going into sound engineering before college, and eventually did art stuff instead. But yeah, I still play guitar and bass on occasion. I used to sing. I don't really do much of that now. I don't have time. I stream on Twitch TV as my side project.
That's my hobby.
No, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Really. That's me.
All right.
I like to watch Big Brother. You know,
Oh yeah, I watch bad reality TV as well.
Who's
and,
your favorite
anime.
multiple-time winner of the Big Brother series?
clearly Dan
Can
Giesling.
you name
the
anyone but
greatest
Dan?
player. I can name other winners, but not multiple winners. He might be the only
Dr. Will.
Sweet.
Like
Dr.
Dr.
Will.
Grace.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your question, Tyler.
Oh, I guess I don't have any.
No, you don't have anything.
Obvious.
What do you want? Yeah, you go ahead.
Apart from Magic the Gathering, lately, I probably spend like 20 to 25 hours a week learning to program, which is cool. And that gives me something to do in my spare time. Instead of like talking at a computer, I can just like look at the computer and type instead, which is
You're
cool.
talking to it in your own unique way.
That's right. I'm talking with the computer's like soul instead of talking with its,
I want you to describe this again, but with the level of compassion you actually have for this hobby.
I'd get like way more excited. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh yeah, yesterday on reddit.com/r/dailyprogrammer, they had an easy challenge, which was take a string and return in order if the letters are in ascending order, with, A being 1 and Z being 26.
Yeah.
So I wrote up a quick, solution in Java that works. Just a couple of nested for loops, no big deal. And yeah, I've been going through, like, there's this guy on YouTube called Derek Banas, who has like a bunch of programming tutorials. And what I like about it is that, like, a lot of video tutorials are like, hey guys, it's like Jabroni 1111, just a quick tutorial about how to do this like 2-minute thing, and it's like a 45-minute long video. This guy is exactly the opposite to a fault, but I love it. He's like, hey, so here's this like incredibly complex thing we're gonna do. Let's do it in code. So I just type it out here and we're done, and then we like it's perfect. 15 minutes is actually like a lesson that should be like 2 hours long. So you just watch
I like
times.
imagining that in real time, like the exact way you just described it. Hey everybody, here's this, it's done. All right, let's go over to the next thing, and that's done
That's
too.
pretty much what it is. In like one 15-minute tutorial, he's like, I'm gonna introduce you to like all these like data structures. I'm like, oh, that's fucking sweet, man.
Yeah.
And then I have to watch the video like 3 times to understand what's going on, but it still at the same time is like really illuminating and not frustrating. Because with the tutorials that kind of languish, I end up like doing other stuff, like looking at my other monitor. And I'm taking classes on the side, but the classes are really slow as well, which is not to brag, but I think, if you can self-teach yourself, you can go at whatever pace you want. If you were like, it's like the difference between like ordering fried chicken at a restaurant and ordering it delivery. Like, you can eat the whole bucket at home guilt-free if that's your fried chicken pace. If that's the pace that you want to eat fried chicken, you don't have to feel shame in the privacy of your own home.
I don't.
I don't know if
I
I
also
want
like to eat a lot of fried chicken.
You're way more motivated than I'll ever be.
I don't know if I want to be this guy, but it's actually like the only other activity that I'm participating in regularly outside of doing podcast and video games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is fitness.
Oh.
Yeah. It's been on 8 weeks now. I've lost 10 pounds. Actually.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and
Yeah, congrats.
I'm getting some gains.
Nice.
Yeah. So fitness is cool. It's fun, actually. Like I've now that I've gotten into it and I've figured out what I'm doing to a certain extent, it's kind of a hobby. Yeah. It's neat to try to like find different ways to exercise different muscles, and I've learned a lot more about how my body works than I ever knew before. I'm learning about like macronutrients and the right kind of supplements and what certain things do to certain parts of your body, like different ways to
hobby.
exercise your cardiovascular system and stuff like that. So it's neat.
You'll probably outlive the three of us by about 10 years.
That's the goal, actually. That's the entire reason I'm doing it.
Yeah, you've already got the age advantage.
Right. But yeah, that's our lives. Thanks for Thanks for the question, Tyler. Appreciate it. Ask Roundtable. You can ask Roundtable questions. roundtableyt@gmail.com, and we'll answer those questions. And now it's time for everybody's favorite old-timey segment. It's Nick's Weird Games. I'll have a music backing track for that. Nick's gonna go get a weird game. We're gonna try to guess what it is. What kind of Nick's Weird Game intro do we want today?
Old-timey, like ragtime.
Oh, that's pretty good, actually.
Like Scott Joplin instrumental piano.
Yeah.
Sure.
Doobie doobie doop, doobie doobie doop.
Give me your. Do you have like a tin can handy?
I'll let you guys sort this out.
How does this work?
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so
looks
give me your old timey radio introduction to Nick's Weird Games and like AM stations.
Broadcasting live from the Westin Building on 11th and 15th Street. It's everybody's favorite Tuesday segment, Nick's Weird Games, bringing you the peculiarities, the oddities, the idiosyncrasies, the bizarrities, and all of the anomalies from the video game world.
Oh, that's good. That's really
I really
good.
didn't want to interrupt that one. It seemed good. He had the can and everything.
Well done.
Thank you.
All right, let's get on with things. So today we're going to be doing another PS2 game, but it's not an Atlas game, so we're already off to a good start, right?
Always a small
Today-
victory there.
Today's game is actually probably going to be rather enlightening for a lot of us because I think this is going to come as a bit of a surprise, some of the people involved in this game. So this is a game that was, for the PS2, released in Japan in 2000, North America in 2000 in October. It was developed by From Software. Published by From Software and in North America, Age Tech.
Is it just Dark Souls?
Age Tech.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
PS2 version of Dark Souls. Bear gets it. It's
Whoa!
over.
Hey, all right.
Is it
Before Dark Souls, there was Ninja Blade.
is it Armored Core?
Nope. I like your
I'm
headset,
out.
though.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Hardly started. So
That's it, baby.
there are quite a few actual similarities between this and Dark Souls, I will say. It is rated T for teen, and the back reads, "To achieve grace, you must first defeat your fears. Enter a world of intense magic and thunderous battles where your survival is determined by collecting powerful artifacts and fashioning them to your armor and weaponry. 2 complete adventures await Darius and Charlene, heroes who must face an evil reborn. Begin your journey with either hero and discover unique characters and monsters for each adventure. Master the art of arming yourself with items of incredible might and untold magical abilities to thwart the powers of darkness that have swept into your once peaceful land."
Publisher again?
Publisher was Age Tech in North America,
Okay, when did it come out in North America again?
2000.
October 2000.
So it was like a PlayStation 2 launch game.
Mm.
Okay, is it Fantavision?
No.
Is it SSX?
Okay, did either of those sound like what I just read to you?
I'm naming all the
Game about-
PlayStation
Launch titles, yeah.
Game about fireworks and And so you've probably surmised at this point that this is an action RPG.
Is it Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance?
Oh, that would be weird.
Yeah, that would be weird.
That game's pretty good though.
I did not know From Software had been around that long. That is a surprise to
Any
me.
other good hints I could give you? I think I've maybe already gone through a lot of them. Utilize many bizarre weapons to wipe out enemies. Challenge ultra-strange creatures to the bitter end.
Ultra strange.
Ultra-strange.
Yeah, you got me again.
Can your weapons break in the game?
I don't remember. Maybe? I did play this, actually, but I don't remember. One thing I do remember about it, though, is it has this one really annoying music track that starts over every time you go in and out of a zone, and you'll hear it about 3,000 times, and you'll get sick of it really fast. Give
I
up?
got nothing.
I got nothing, yeah.
All right. This
No
was
idea.
Evergrace.
Evergrace.
That character!
I feel
I've
like I
seen
remember
that.
that.
Yeah. He is like
totally seen that.
generic RPG character.
Yep. He's the one.
He's the one. That's
He
so
actually looks
weird.
a little like Raziel or something from
He
Legacy
looks,
of Kain, only with
he looks
like
a lot like the Bastion guy too.
Final
Actually.
Fantasy guy. Yeah. Head attached to him. I actually kind of want to go back and play this again because I remember it being pretty bad, but now that I have from software context, I kind of want to see what was up with that
Yeah,
game.
that is interesting. Evergrace. By
It
From
doesn't have
Software.
great reviews, but
No, I remember most people playing it and not liking it very much.
Evergrace is a word you can type entirely with your left hand, if that is influential to anybody.
Oh shit, you're right.
I just,
and it has
I was like,
I did the with the hand.
it's a 50.5 on game rankings.
Right.
wow.
Straight up average.
That is like poor. I think.
Well, at the time, it was the only action RPG available, so you had to take what you could get.
No, it got a 7.2 from IGN, so yeah, it's garbage.
I
Horrible.
actually like IGN now, but 2000 era IGN is a different beast altogether.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there it
Man.
is.
Also, check out Google image search if you forgot how ugly PlayStation 2 launch titles were.
I'm excited.
Wow. Look at those,
In my head, this was like photorealistic.
look at those browns, man.
It's like some nasty browns.
Ooh.
Wow.
It's mostly just the textures are super stretched.
As I said, the texture's just like, and now we're gonna put it over this mountain.
Yeah, if I got an email for Evergrace, I would totally ignore it.
Dude, we're about maybe like 5 or 10 years away from these games coming back. You can already sort of see it like in the opening cinematic for Volume, and I saw it in Invisible Ink too. Like those super tiny box cutscenes from like the PlayStation 2 era are coming back, man.
No.
I don't want
that. All right, well,
Can we move on to our magic section now?
no, we're done. We're done. The show's over. That's it.
So in the Google image search for Evergrace, you got to go way down. But then there is just a tweet here that someone has taken and blacked out the name of the person, which is good. But it says, does it take 18 months for twins to be born or 9?
Oh, good.
If you go further down, there's also a picture of Stifler's mom.
There's
Neil Patrick
a
Harris.
From the
Flying
top
Darth
10
Vader.
mothers to ever grace the big screen.
there's a picture of 2 billboards. The top one says Jesus in all capital letters, and then the next one is an advertisement for a McDonald's hamburger that says beefy cheesy glory. Jesus
All right.
is beefy cheesy glory.
Very interesting. Google image search results await you.
Thanks for watching the Roundtable Podcast, everybody. Hope you enjoyed our beefy, cheesy, savory glory. You can download it on iTunes. You can rate it.
Nice.
Savory.
You can rate it 5 stars over on iTunes. That really helps us out a lot. Patreon.com/roundtable is what keeps this show afloat. So if you're considering making just any sort of financial contribution, we'd appreciate that. It's patreon.com/roundtable over there. Want to thank our patrons for this episode, except apparently it locked me out, so I need Mathis to stall for 30 seconds.
So I bought 82 booster packs for Magic the Gathering.
How many?
All right, I don't want Mathis
I haven't
to stall
opened any
anymore.
of them yet.
You gonna open them all at PAX or something?
No, I'm gonna open. I'm gonna open them probably in 2 separate videos. I
Thank you
gotta
very
make sure I
much.
have at least 2 decks ready for PAX Prime.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much to Max, Christopher, Garrett, Stewart, Hired Help, Jeff Rush. Oh, apparently Hired Help is back in the thank you tier. That's weird. Okay. Jonathan Graham, Julian Abelsgaard, Kevin Berkling, Caspian Crawdad, Matt, David Bradley, Air Force Balls, Alexander Spillman, and General Crunk. Thank you guys very much for your incredible support. And thank you all for watching. We'll have a new episode after PAX Prime. We'll figure out how in the hell we're going to actually record that, since we'll all probably be dead the Tuesday following that event. But should have an episode either the 4th or very shortly after that. Stream on twitch.tv/roundtable podcast.
Not next week.
Not next week. Yeah, sorry, can't possibly happen. In any
I mean, we could,
sort
but
of-
it's gonna be fucking hard.
I gotta go to the dentist. It's true. I actually have an appointment then.
I will be sending out, if you're part of the $75 tier, I will be sending out an email with the next day we want to do. We'll try to get together for the group stream/gaming session, get out all the patrons in and playing with us on the stream. I'm thinking 2nd or 3rd week of September. So if you're in that tier, look for my email. I will be sending it out.
Reddit.com/roundtable podcast. Episode discussion. All the things. And Twitter as well, at Roundtable PC. Email your questions to askroundtable, roundtableyt@gmail.com. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Roundtable Podcast. I'm going to point at you until the screen fades. Goodbye.
Goodbye.